Chapter 1346. On the second floor of the library in the Valley of Relics. The Xianqi in heaven and earth was rich here. Even an average person who did not know how to fight could live to a ripe old age if he stayed here for a long time. Once again, Luli came here. He chose to seal his memory. He knew that it was pointless to think too much at the moment, which would only add to his troubles. He would rather study and cultivate. That was the only way he could make a name for himself in the divinity and return to the Earth Imperial Universe. As a matter of fact, if Luli went to Patriarch Gu and Patriarch Gu could offer his savings or ask for help from the Chamber of Relics, Luli could go back to the Earth Imperial Universe from the Spacetime Office. However, given his current abilities, going back would be courting death. Ling Wanjian would go after him and tear him apart. Cho Qianjun would not give up the chance to kill Luli. Cho Qianjun could not kill Patriarch Gu, but Luli was just a disciple. Before he ascended to the divinity, Luli knew that he would be surrounded by danger in the divinity because he had too many enemies. God of Sorcerer, God of Barbarian, God of Wings, and Yin Tiangang were all powerful warriors. Now that the most powerful enemy was dead, two even more powerful enemies had appeared, two enemies that he could not contend against at all. Ling Wanjian and Cho Qianjun. The two were like two mountains, suffocating Lu Li and making him afraid to leave the Valley of Relics. It was a suffocating and uncomfortable feeling, as if there were two swords hanging over his head and they could fall at any time. One was a super mighty warrior in the divinity, and the other was a young master of a major force. Both of them had powerful backgrounds. Even if Lu Li were 100 times stronger, he would still die if he went out, let alone his current abilities. Fortunately, after Lu Li left the northern desert, the enemies he encountered were all beyond his imagination. He had a strong mind. No pressure could crush him. Instead, it helped him grow. Lu Li continued to read. After he read dozens of abstruse books, he transferred his memories to Blood Fairy. Master, wait a second. At that moment, Blood Fairy suddenly sent him a message. She explained, I've been studying the spell formation in the Thunderbringer recently and found some problems. Something wrong? Luli blinked in confusion. The lightning trigger was a finished product, and it was proven to be powerful. How could Blood Fairy say that there was something wrong with the formation in the lightning trigger? If there was something wrong, then the lightning trigger would be worthless. Are you sure? Luli asked. Blood Fairy replied after a moment. I can't say that there is a problem. I just feel that the formation has gone astray. According to my understanding of spirit arrays, this spirit array should be able to become more perfect and powerful. If someone else had said this, Luli would have slapped them. Over the years, Luli had taught Blood Fairy a great deal of knowledge about inhibition formations. Blood Fairy consumed 100 crystal of icy soul. She did not evolve, but she had grown. The Blood Fairy clan had a freakish, innate divine ability that allowed them to break formations. After the evolution, Blood Fairy could learn inhibition formations at a faster speed. Therefore, Luli would take her words seriously. His heart skipped a beat. Elder Gu had always wanted to improve the Thunderbringer. If Blood Fairy could help improve the spell, perhaps the power of the Thunderbringer would increase. This could solve the problem that had been bothering Patriarch Gu for years. Luli was doing his best to help Patriarch Gu. He quickly asked, Blood Fairy, can you improve the formation? Can you make the formation of Thunderbringer more perfect and powerful? Among the books that Patriarch Gu gave Luli were the methods to build Thunderbringer. Luli transferred all this knowledge to Blood Fairy. Little did he know that during this time, she was studying the formations in the lightning trigger. I cannot say that I am completely sure. Blood Fairy said, Master has given me a lot of knowledge about magic formations. I want to try it out and see if I can improve the lightning summoner's magic formation even more. Master, give me 1 or 2 months. Do not disturb me during this time. Okay, 1 or 2 months was too short for Luli. He could spend it in closed-door cultivation. If Blood Fairy could improve the Thunderbringer, Patriarch Gu would be overjoyed. Luli continued to read the book, trying to memorize all the complicated information. After all, he did not have to study, verify, or learn. All he needed to do was to memorize and pass the knowledge to Blood Fairy. Luli had been cultivating his soul for several years, and he had been consuming soul-related elixirs. His soul had been growing stronger. It was easy for him to memorize some information. Time moved on. Half a month later, the peace in the library was broken. Qian Huanan walked over, overjoyed. He handed a fancy sword to Lu Li and said, "Boss, I have finally made a top relic. I am a master craftsman now." Lu Li took over the sword and took a look. He was shocked. It had only been 3 years. How could Qian Huanhan forge a high relic? Before, Qian Huanhan could only make low-grade relics of the lowest level, which was not perfect. How could he improve so quickly in 3 years? Lu Li took over the sword and looked at it. His understanding of formations had reached a profound level. He tried to sense it and found that the formation inside was not powerful. That being said, judging from the forging technique, the appearance of the relic, the formation, the artifact's spirit, and the stability, this sword was indeed a top relic. Good. Lu Li was happy for Qian Huanhan. He gave him a thumbs up and said, "Han, I did not know that you were so talented in forging artifacts. I am proud of you. That being said, it is easier to become a master craftsman than a master craftsman. It will be harder to become a master craftsman. I hope you can keep up the good work. Don't become complacent." "I will." Qian Huanhan nodded. He was overjoyed. He had been working hard all these years. He was either studying formations or forging artifacts. Apart from Patriarch Gu, Lu Li had never seen him. Today, he could finally see the light. How could he not be happy? "Let's go. I will have a drink with you." Lu Li stood up in delight. He was ready to celebrate for Qian Huanhan. It had been a long time, and he needed some rest. They left the library and walked toward Patriarch Gu's place. Rustle, rustle, rustle. As soon as they stepped out of the library, 3 young ladies walked toward them. The one in the lead was Jiang Ruodin and Lady Dan. It had been several years since they last met. Lady Dan was even more beautiful. She was like a ripe apple, emitting an alluring fragrance. She was wearing a pink leather skirt that revealed her round and fair thighs. She was also wearing a short armor that exposed her smooth and fair abdomen, quite attractive. She had a white jade bow in her hand. It seemed that she had come to the library to look for information. Coincidentally, she ran into Lu Li and Qian Huanhan. She was surprised, and then she pulled a long face. It had been 3 years since they last met, but it did not mean that Lady Dan had forgotten about the past. Jiang Lianxue was still grounded at the moment. Qian Huanhan had defeated Lady Dan in the competition of craftsmen. Lady Dan could not hold her head high for a long time after she returned to the Chamber of Relics. Lady Dan was furious when she saw Qian Huanhan and Lu Li. She sneered when she saw the sword in Qian Huanhan's hand. "Qian Huanhan, it takes you 3 years to make a sword. I heard that you have forged a top relic. Can you let this young lady have a look?" Chapter 1347. The news of Qian Huanhan forging superior-grade divine artifacts had been reported to the Divine Artifact Pavilion. Young Mistress Dan had just come out of seclusion and heard the news. She scanned Qian Huanhan's divine artifact with her divine perception and knew what was going on. Qian Huanhan was in a bad mood after hearing young Mistress Dan's words. He realized that a few disciples had come out of the library to watch the show. He forced a smile and handed the sword to young Mistress Dan. "Please teach me, Senior Mistress Dan." Young Mistress Dan handed her white bow to a young mistress beside her. She took the sword and flicked the blade with her finger. The sword hummed softly. The formation patterns on the sword started to move. It looked like there was a flash of light. "This sword embryo is flashy, but not practical." Young Mistress Dan glanced at Qian Huanhan and said softly, "This sword embryo is made of diamond, heaven's sunstone, and moonlight stone, right? When you were forging it, the fire was not good enough. Also, you should have used earth flame crystals to heat it up. That way, the sword embryo would have been more perfect. Junior brother Qian Huanhan, am I right?" Qian Huanhan was stunned. Then, he nodded expressionlessly. "Senior Mistress Dan is right. It was not good enough. I did not use earth flame crystals either." Lady Dan poured her divine power into it and frowned. She shook her head disapprovingly and said, Brother Qianhuan, you need to improve your formation skills. You've carved 4 formations in total: tenacity, gale, fire, and fury. These 4 formations work well with each other and can increase the weapon's power by a few percent. However, you carved the fierce fire formation and the strong wind formation too close to each other. This will cause the divine artifact to overheat. If you use it for a long time, the lifespan of this divine artifact will be greatly reduced. If you use it frequently, it will be useless in half a year at most. This is a half-useless divine artifact. Shoo, more and more disciples came to watch. Young Mistress Dan's comments made Qianhuan's face darken. However, young Mistress Dan was not just making things up. She had her reasons. What she said was true and could not be refuted. With so many people watching, Qianhuan could only nod and say, Young Mistress Dan is right. I need to improve on my formations. Ah, this artifact spirit, Lady Dan suddenly exclaimed in surprise. She felt pity. She poured divine power into her hand, and a fiery flood dragon appeared. She shook her head and said, Junior Brother Qianhuan, don't you know that the fiery flood dragon is of the fire attribute? Your divine sword is supposed to walk the path of explosive power, but you sealed a fire flood dragon with a dark attribute. This will cause a clash of attributes, which will greatly shorten the lifespan of the sword. Spending so many high-grade divine materials to refine a divine weapon that couldn't be used for too long was a huge waste. This is also because Elder Gu is protecting you. If it were any other disciple, they would have been punished long ago. Qianhuan's face turned pale. His joy of forging a high-grade divine weapon and becoming a divine craftsman had completely disappeared. The superior-grade divine artifact that he had painstakingly forged was now worthless in Lady Dan's words. And the timer. Lady Dan did not seem to have the intention to let Qianhuan off the hook. She said sarcastically, The level of the timer is so low. I am beginning to wonder if you're a Patriarch Gu's apprentice. Also, you won the 3rd place in the competition of craftsmen. You came back and cultivated for 3 years, and you only made such a lousy, superior relic? Back then, I made a superior relic that was 10 times better than yours, but I did not make it to the semifinals. I don't even know how you made it to the semifinals. Did you secretly bribe a patriarch of the craftsmen's sect? You. Qianhuan trembled with anger. Lady Dan's words were sharp. She picked holes in him in front of so many people. She even mentioned the competition of craftsmen and accused him of cheating. She was trying to humiliate him in the Chamber of Relics. Lu Li had elevated Qianhuan to a high position. If Qianhuan could not keep up, he would be overrated. The higher one rose, the harder one fell. Today was the best example. Qianhuan had been cultivating for 3 years. Finally, he had made great progress in forging artifacts and made a superior relic. Now that he had been humiliated by Lady Dan, even if he did not lose his mind, he would start to doubt himself. This might affect his future. Clearly, Qianhuan was not mentally strong. Otherwise, he would not have been so agitated and angry when he met Meng Fei. Lu Li stared at Qianhuan, who was trembling. Lu Li knew he must do something. Otherwise, Qianhuan would not be able to recover from this setback, and his future would be ruined. Lu Li turned to the young lady next to Lady Dan, who was holding a white jade bow. Sister Dan, this bow is beautiful. Did you make it? Lu Li asked with a smile. Lady Dan looked at Lu Li with her guard up. That young lady said proudly, Yes. This is the result of Sister Dan's recent work. Among the superior relics, this is the best. Sister Dan has been cultivating for 3 years. She has made great progress in forging artifacts. 2 patriarchs speak highly of her. They believe that in the next competition of craftsmen in 7 years, she will become the new master craftsman. Oh, is that so? Lu Li was filled with admiration. Rubbing his hands, he said, Can I have a look at such a good relic? I have always admired and been curious about Lady Dan's forging skills. That young lady was proud of herself. She turned to Lady Dan, who was hesitant. She had a bad feeling. However, there were so many people around. If she refused flatly, people would think she was guilty. Seeing Lady Dan's hesitation, Luli grinned. What? Sister Dan, this relic cannot be shown to others? Or is it a piece of junk? Lady Dan had heard about Lu Li's sharp words before. Back when Jiang Linxue made a fuss, Lu Li made everyone speechless in the Hall of Penal Code. Now, Lady Dan had a first-hand experience. She smiled and said, "Since junior brother Lu wants to have a look, I will show him." Handing the bow to Lu Li, Sister Fu said with disdain, "Be careful. Don't break it. This is a superior relic. I don't think you can make one in your lifetime." Lu Li was not angry at all. Without looking at the jade bow, he asked Sister Fu, "Sister Fu, are you afraid that the bow will be broken or that I will crush it? If a superior relic can be broken so easily, then you would not be making a superior relic, but a porcelain." Sister Fu realized that she had slapped herself in the face. She became angry and said, "Look, don't waste time. If it weren't for my good intentions, you wouldn't have a chance." "Is that so?" The corners of Lu Li's mouth curled up into a faint smile. He flicked the bow, and the bow made a sound. Lu Li frowned and said, "The prototype of this bow is well made. But for the sake of its beautiful appearance, you chose the lunar cloud iron as the main material, right? This material is precious. One piece is worth more than 1,000 divine sources. It has many uses, but it is not tough enough. It is such a waste to use it as the main material for a bow. Only Sister Fu, as the granddaughter of the chief, would dare to waste it. If it were us, the Hall of Penal Code would come after us." Giving Qian Huanhan a taste of his own medicine, Lady Dan did not expect that Lu Li would slap her in the face right after she mocked Qian Huanhan. What was more, Lu Li was right. Lunar cloud iron is rare. Many books don't record it. How does Lu Li know about it? Chapter 1348. Lunar cloud iron was rare indeed. Average disciples would not have access to it. Even if they went to the library to look for information, they would not go to the library to look for materials that they might never be able to use. Lu Li, of course, knew about lunar cloud iron. Tian Lingzi's library had records of all kinds of rare materials. Lu Li had read them all, and he knew them clearly. A relic weapon made of this material was as beautiful as jade carvings. It was a pity that Lady Dan was not good enough. If she could add some other materials, the bow could be strengthened. You're just talking nonsense. How could an insignificant disciple like you know about this bow? You're just talking nonsense. Clearly, Sister Fu did not believe Lu Li. She sneered. She thought Lu Li was talking nonsense to please the crowd. She would not let Lu Li leave her behind because of Lady Dan. Lu Li smiled. Looking at Lady Dan, he said, "Sister Dan, the main material of your bow is lunar cloud iron with wind flower stones, scorpion crystals, and a small amount of meteorite iron. Am I wrong?" "What?" Some onlooking disciples were taken aback. They had never heard of two of the materials Lu Li mentioned. They were skeptical. Could it be that Lu Li was just talking nonsense? Lady Dan put on a cold face. She pouted and said, "The bow is made of these materials. The problem is that there is no more stone of chill and black jade vines in the warehouse. Otherwise, the bow would not be so weak. Don't blame me." Lady Dan indirectly admitted that Lu Li was right. Many disciples and Sister Fu were shocked. Lu Li could tell all the materials after a few glances. Ha ha ha, Lu Li laughed out loud. He shook his head and sighed. "Sister Dan, you are so rich. The stone of chill is worth several thousand divine sources each, and the black jade vines are valuable as well. If you use those materials, you will lose money if you sell the bow. As a matter of fact, you don't have to use such good materials. You just need to add some white phosphorus powder and blue yuan stone. But it is difficult to melt the two materials together, and the chances of failure are high. I think you're not good at forging artifacts. That is why you don't want to ruin the lunar cloud iron." Lady Dan's eyes were wide open. She stared at Lu Li as if she had seen a ghost. Everything Lu Li said was right. It was as if he had seen her work with his own eyes. It wasn't that she didn't know that the white phosphorus powder and blue essence stone could make up for the lack of toughness of the moon cloud iron. It was just that her skill in smithing wasn't high enough, so she didn't dare to try. If she failed, the Mooncloud iron would be ruined. Lady Dan's expressions had explained many things. They looked at Lu Li with even more uncertainty. If Lu Li were a patriarch, it would be normal for him to say this. But Lu Li was just an average disciple, not even an artifact forging master. How could he teach Miss Dan a lesson? Qian Huanhan looked better. He had always admired Lu Li. At the Chamber of Relics, he and Lu Li were the only true brothers. Lu Li was delighted that he had taught Lady Dan a lesson. Just now, Lady Dan's attack and humiliation had lifted some of the anger in him. Now, he felt much better. Buzzing, Lu Li poured in divine energy. The bow began to glow in a white light. There was a layer of mist over the bow. Judging by its appearance, the bow was as good as many supreme relics. Lady Dan looked at the mist around the bow and the artifact spirit that was faintly discernible. She smiled with confidence. This bow was the best work she had ever made in her life. She was proud of it. Lu Li closed his eyes to sense for a moment. He shook his head and sighed, feeling sorry. Lady Dan pulled a long face. She stared at Lu Li, eager to hear what he had to say. What a waste of resources, Lu Li exclaimed. He opened his eyes and looked at Lady Dan with disappointment. Sister Dan, does the chief know that you are wasting the materials of the Chamber of Relics? You have been cultivating for 3 years, and you have consumed so many precious materials. But all you have gotten is a useless artifact. What? Many people were taken aback. Sister Fu thought she had heard it wrong. Lady Dan found it hard to believe. She had shown the bow to the 2 patriarchs. It was indeed one of the best high-quality relics. How could Lu Li say that the bow was useless? Did he mean that the 2 patriarchs were blind and could not tell that it was a useless artifact? Useless. How dare you? A cold snort came out. A middle-aged man walked over from the end of the street. His face was full of sarcasm as he strode over. Before he got close, he said with mockery, Lu Li, this holy feather bow is appraised by me. How dare you say it is useless? Are you not afraid that you will lose your tongue? Or are you better than me in forging artifacts? Jiang Zuqiang. Lu Li threw a glance over. He grinned. Jiang Lianchue's father was here, and he was going to humiliate Lu Li in public? Nice to meet you, Patriarch Jiang. The disciples bowed at once, including Lu Li and Qian Huanhan. Neither Lu Li nor Qian Huanhan liked this man, but they could not make any mistakes in etiquette. Otherwise, Jiang Zuqiang would take this opportunity to teach them a lesson. Jiang Zuqiang snorted coldly and said with a straight face, Lu Li, I heard everything you said just now. I need you to give me an explanation. Otherwise, you are disrespecting me and Patriarch Tong. It is a serious crime to look down on seniors of the sect. Clearly, Jiang Zuqiang wanted to use this opportunity to teach Lu Li a lesson. Jiang Lianxue was still in there. He had begged the chief several times, but she was not released. Jiang Zuqiang was humiliated and angry. Now that he had finally found a chance, he would not let it go. Yes, Sister Fu added, Patriarch Jiang and Patriarch Tong have identified the feather bow. They are sure that it is a top relic. Lu Li, you are talking nonsense. You are denying the judgment of the 2 patriarchs. You are insulting our seniors. Insulting seniors was a serious offense. The first rule of the Chamber of Relics was that one should not insult the seniors. If this was proven, Lu Li would be grounded for 3 to 5 years. Everyone was looking at Lu Li. Qian Huanhan was nervous. Lu Li remained calm. Looking at Jiang Zuqiang, he said with a smile, Patriarch Jiang, how about we make a bet? If I am lying, I will let the Hall of Law convict me. If I am lucky enough to be right, what will you do? Really? Lu Li's confidence made Jiang Zuqiang doubt himself. Did he make a mistake? However, Patriarch Tong was with Lu Li, and he had seen the feather bow as well. Sometimes one could make a mistake. How could 2 patriarchs be wrong? On this thought, Jiang Zuqiang sneered. What do you want me to do? How about I bow and apologize to you? Sure. Lu Li nodded. He looked around and said, Please be my witnesses. If the bow is not useless, I will let the Hall of Law convict me. If it is, Patriarch Jiang must bow and apologize to me. What? It had been a lively scene. More and more disciples gathered. There were more than 20 now. Lu Li's words caused a huge sensation. A disciple who was not even an artifact forging master wanted to make a bet with a patriarch. They were betting on whether a relic was useless or not. This must be an unprecedented farce. Boss, don't go overboard. Qian Huanhan was losing confidence. He tugged at Lu Li's robe. He hoped that Lu Li would not get himself into trouble just to stand up for him. It's okay. Chapter 1349. Lady Dan took over the feather bow. She poured divine energy into the bow and checked it carefully for a moment. She was sure that the relic was fine and everything was normal. How could it become useless after 100 shots? In addition to Lady Dan, Sister Fu and the others also checked the feather bow with psychic power. They were sure that it was a good relic. The bow was full of might. The bow was glowing, and the artifact spirit was wandering around. Everything indicated that the bow was in good condition. Even Jiang Zuqiang couldn't find anything wrong with it when he checked with psychic power. Jiang Zuqiang nodded to Lady Dan. The latter pulled the bow open and released it into the sky. There were no arrows on the bow. However, as Lady Dan pulled the string, Xianqi in heaven and earth gathered to form a semi-transparent arrow. Swish, the translucent arrow flew into the sky with a scorching aura, splitting into a dozen or so arrows in midair. There were like a dozen or so white dragons whizzing into the sky, trying to tear the creatures in the sky into pieces. What? As soon as Lady Dan used the bow, many powerful warriors in the Valley of Relics were alarmed. Many people checked with psychic power. Jiang Zuqiang was relieved to see that Lady Dan was only shooting at the sky. That being said, many people did not withdraw their psychic power at once. They were checking with curiosity, trying to figure out what was going on. Swish, the second arrow was released. The dozen white dragons whooshed up and disappeared after they reached a height of several miles. The third arrow, the fourth arrow, the fifth arrow. Making sure that the feather bow was fine, Lady Dan shot out more and more arrows. She had been checking the feather bow to make sure that it was fine. She grinned and looked at Lu Li every now and then, trying to see if he was disappointed. Lu Li was calm. His eyes were filled with confidence. He didn't seem to be worried at all. It became noisy. Many people were discussing in a low voice. Some were making bets to see who would win, but it was obvious that most people were betting on Jiang Zuqiang. Lu Li was a disciple who had only been at the Chamber of Relics for a few years. How could he compare with a patriarch? Jiang Zuqiang was an expert craftsman who had been studying forging artifacts for over 100 years. The continuous shooting of the arrows alarmed the elders in the valley. The Pavilion Master and the Dragon Blood Fiend, Ancient Elder, quietly sent out their divine senses. Hearing the disciples' discussion, they were even more curious. Lu Li actually made a bet with Jiang Zuqiang. This was the first time he had encountered such a thing in the Chamber of Relics. How could Lu Li call a relic that was appraised by two patriarchs? A little disciple actually dared to compare his foresight and knowledge with two elders. If it was anyone else, perhaps the Pavilion Master, Dragonblood Fiend, and the Ancient Elder would not have paid any attention to it, treating it as a farce. But Lu Li was different. They all knew that it was all thanks to Lu Li that Qian Huanhan could win the third place. Lu Li had given them many surprises. Will there be more this time? 30th arrow, the 50th arrow, the 80th arrow. Miss Dan was very fast. She had shot 4 or 5 arrows in one breath. White dragons were hovering in the sky. It was a beautiful scene. Qian Huanhan looked terrible. He had shot out 80 arrows, but the holy feather bow did not show any signs of damage. The same glow, the same might, and the same mist. It was the same as when Lu Li shot out the first arrow. Some disciples who bet on Lu Li were furious. Why didn't they believe in Lu Li? Clearly, they were going to lose. Sister Fu and the other female disciples sneered. They would glance at Lu Li from the corner of their eyes every now and then. They seemed to be celebrating in advance. The 88th arrow. Miss Dan was a bit relieved. So far, nothing had happened to the holy feather bow. It would not be a problem to shoot out 100 arrows. Lu Li was just bluffing. The holy feather bow could not be useless. Jiang Zuqiang had been keeping a straight face. As a matter of fact, he was finally relieved. If he lost, he would have to bow and apologize to Lu Li. In that case, he would not be able to hold his head high in the Chamber of Relics anymore. A patriarch bowing and apologizing to a disciple? Jiang Zuqiang felt his cheeks were burning at the thought of it. The 93rd arrow, the 96th arrow. As the white dragons whooshed up, Qian Huanhan had lost all hope. He no longer cared about the result. His only thought was to go to Patriarch Gu and plead for Lu Li at the Hall of Penal Code, so that Lu Li would not suffer so miserably. Sister Fu and the others turned to Lu Li. He was still calm. They could not help but admire Lu Li's composure. He was so calm on the brink of death. The 98th arrow. After the arrow was shot, Miss Dan's expression suddenly changed. She looked as if she had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Her mouth was open wide enough to fit an egg. The smiles on Sister Fu and the others' faces froze. Jiang Zuqiang's eyebrows were raised. His heart skipped a beat. Did something happen? What is it, Sister Dan? Why did you stop? You need 2 more arrows. Sister Fu asked in surprise. Miss Dan didn't say anything, but her face turned paler and paler. She stared at the bow in her hand. Her eyes were filled with disbelief and frustration. It was as if she had lost her soul. Dan, what is going on? Jiang Zuqiang sensed something was wrong. He walked over and asked with a solemn expression. Lady Dan didn't answer. She just handed the feather bow to Jiang Zuqiang. The entire place fell silent. Everyone stared at the godly feather bow, their faces full of shock and confusion. Lu Li said that the bow would become useless after 100 arrows. Now, it was broken after 98 arrows. Could it be that Lu Li was right? Whoosh, whoosh, some patriarchs that had been secretly observing flew over. They could not hold back their curiosity, so they came to find out what the problem was. Jiang Zuqiang took over the bow and checked it. Then, he poured in divine energy to sense it. Soon, he pulled a long face. He suddenly looked up at Lu Li and said, You did this? The formation on the bow is in good condition. Now, something is wrong. You must have done something. Yes. Although Sister Fu didn't know the specifics, she immediately added, Lu Li took the bow just now. He must have done something to it and destroyed the magic circle. Otherwise, why would the holy feather bow be broken? The patriarchs that came did not check, but they looked at Lu Li with suspicion. After all, the 2 patriarchs had checked the feather bow. They couldn't have made a mistake. It was highly possible that Lu Li had done something to it. Lu Li smiled, but said nothing. Qian Huanhan argued, Patriarch Jiang, don't make slanderous accusations. Lu Li can destroy the formation just by taking a look. How can he be so capable? Not even a master craftsman can change the formation in the bow without anyone noticing. All right, let's stop arguing. Lu Li waved his hand. Looking to the north, he said, Master is here. Let him take a look and you will know. Wow. Chapter 1350. Jiang Xinghe, Chief of Chamber of Relics, had been checking with psychic power. His abilities were not particularly strong, but his soul was impressive. He had checked the feather bow dozens of times. It was just that no one here knew about it. His spiritual force could not detect any specific problems. Jiang Xinghe was very curious as to what was wrong with the array within the bow. After all, the bow was made by his granddaughter. Therefore, he left his yard. As soon as he left, Long Xuesha and another patriarch came. They were not here to make trouble, but to forge artifacts. Everyone was interested. Surrounded by several patriarchs, Jiang Xinghe came. On the other side, more patriarchs and disciples came. Patriarch Gu came as well. This matter concerned Lu Li and Qian Huanhan. He had to come. Let me take a look. Jiang Xinghe glanced over and reached out his hand. Jiang Zuqiang handed the feather bow to Jiang Xinghe at once. Jiang Xinghe took it over, poured in divine energy, and closed his eyes. After the time for a dozen breaths, Jiang Xinghe opened his eyes. He handed the feather bow to Patriarch Gu and said, Shanhe, take a look as well. Okay. Patriarch Gu was interested as well. He poured in divine energy to check. A moment later, he nodded and handed the bow to Long Shuasha. The relic bow went around in the hands of the patriarchs. When the last patriarch finished, Jiang Xinghe said, "Tell me, did Luli tamper with the relic bow?" The patriarchs looked at each other. They did not dare to say anything for fear that they might say the wrong thing. Seeing that nobody said anything, Long Shuasha cleared his throat and said, "There is no sign that the formation on the bow has been altered. If Luli can change it without us noticing and leave no trace, then he should be a master craftsman, not an average disciple." Long Shuasha was known for his abilities, but he was also a master craftsman. His words were credible. Patriarch Gu added, "Luli has only been here for a couple of years. I don't think he is that capable. Also, he just took the bow and took a look. Not even I can change the formation in such a short time." Patriarch Gu had made the final decision. There was no doubt that Luli did not tamper with the bow. If Luli did not do anything, then there must be something wrong with the formation on the feather bow. Luli noticed this problem, but not Jiang Zuqiang and Patriarch Tong. Luli did not tamper with the formation. Pavilion Master Jiang Xinghe confirmed this point. He glanced at the group of elders and asked, "Then do you know why the divine feather bow is useless after firing 100 arrows? Can anyone give me an explanation?" The patriarchs looked at each other. Nobody dared to say anything because they could not see the source. Moreover, there was now a problem with the array. If he had looked at it from the beginning, he might have been able to see some clues. Long Shuasha looked pensive while Elder Gu's rigid face revealed a faint smile. Elder Sun was a little uncertain as he asked, "Could it be they are charging the formation?" The chief master didn't express any opinion. He looked around and finally looked at Lu Li and said, "Lu Li, you solve the riddle." Lu Li looked at Patriarch Gu, who nodded. Lu Li saluted to the chief and the other patriarchs. He looked at Patriarch Sun and said, "Patriarch Sun, you are right. The feather bow was used for the formation." He took over the feather bow from a patriarch and said, "As you all know, this bow is made of lunar cloud iron. Relics made from lunar cloud iron are beautiful. They are as clear as jade and will be surrounded by mist. All along, relics made from lunar cloud iron are very popular. But there's a flaw. The relics made from lunar cloud iron are not tough enough. They can be destroyed easily, and their lifespan is not long." Lu Li spoke with fervor and assurance. He was not nervous at all in front of the chief and the patriarchs. He was confident and his tone was rhythmic. He was convincing. He paused for a moment before continuing. However, everyone only noticed the weakness of the moon cloud iron. They forgot that the moon cloud iron has another weakness. The attribute of the moon cloud iron is slightly cold. If we add the cold heart stone, black jade vine, or white phosphorus powder and blue essence stone during the forging process, the cold attribute will be neutralized. With that said, Lu Li looked around to the other patriarchs. Several patriarchs seemed to be enlightened. 2 patriarchs were ashamed that they didn't think of this. Lu Li nodded. He turned to Lady Dan and said, "Lady Dan might not know this, so she didn't pay attention when she was carving the formation. She carved 6 formations, one of which is the fire element formation and the other one is the explosion formation. When the 2 formations are put together, the relic will become extremely hot when it is activated. The main material of the feather bow is lunar cloud iron. Lunar cloud iron has a cold attribute. Without the help of other materials, the feather bow will produce the formation. It doesn't matter if the formation is activated for dozens of times or not. But once the feather bow shoots out arrows continuously, the formation will break. Either the feather bow explodes or the formation goes haywire." Before Lu Li finished, all the patriarchs had understood. By the time he finished, even the average disciples had understood the whole story. Lady Dan's face turned pale. Jiang Zuqiang's expression was as if he had just lost his father. He had just made a bet with Lu Li, and all the patriarchs were here. Was he really going to bow and apologize to Lu Li in front of everyone? How could he stay in the Chamber of Relics in the future? In the future, when disciples looked at him in a strange way, he would rather die. "Lu Li, where did you learn all this?" Jiang Xinghe looked at Lu Li with interest. Not even many patriarchs here knew about this, let alone the average disciples. Lunar cloud iron was rare and rarely used. There was too much knowledge about forging artifacts. Every patriarch had their own specialties. It was impossible for them to know all of them. Luli bowed to the chief with respect and said, "Chief, I like to read all kinds of books. Recently, I have been reading in the library. Therefore, I have read a wide range of subjects. It just so happened that I saw a lunar cloud iron recently. Fortunately, I noticed something wrong with the feather bow. The feather bow is quite good, but there are some flaws. Lady Dan has made great progress in forging artifacts. She can go back and reforge it. It will be a top-grade relic." Luli was showing respect to Lady Dan. In other words, he was showing respect to the chief. After all, Lady Dan was the chief's granddaughter. The chief must show respect to Lu Li when he did. Chief nodded. Many patriarchs were looking at Lu Li with suspicion. He happened to see the information about lunar cloud iron. Lu Li could see the problem right away, and he could tell that something would go wrong within 100 shots. If it were not for his good luck, Lu Li's knowledge in forging artifacts would be profound. He might even be more knowledgeable than the patriarchs. Lu Li had only been at the Chamber of Relics for a few years. How could he be more knowledgeable than the patriarchs? Many people expressed their doubts. They comforted themselves that Lu Li was just lucky. Patriarch Jiang. Chapter 1351. Patriarch Gu shook his head to Lu Li, who pretended not to see it. Chief Master said nothing, and so did Dragon Shuasha. But deep down, they must be unhappy. Lu Li stared at Jiang Zuqiang for a while, and said with a smile, "Patriarch Jiang, I think you have seen the problem. You deliberately made a bet with me. You must be joking with me. Are you testing my eyesight? I do not know much, and I will need more guidance from Patriarch Jiang." Phew! As soon as Lu Li finished his words, all the patriarchs, including Jiang Xinghe, Dragon Shuasha, and Patriarch Gu, were relieved. Lu Li knew how to behave himself. Instead of taking advantage of the situation, he offered a way out for Jiang Zuqiang. Everyone had a higher opinion of Lu Li. Jiang Zuqiang fell off the cliff. He suddenly saw a pond at the bottom of the cliff. Next to the pond was a cave with treasures in it. He was overjoyed. After a moment, he nodded and said, "Well done, Lu Li. You have done well. Don't be arrogant and rash. Keep up the good work." Jiang Zuqiang was humiliated today, and the news would be spread out later. But Lu Li had saved him the last shred of dignity. Jiang Zuqiang was happy that Lu Li had helped him. For the first time, he felt grateful to Lu Li. Of course, he soon realized that Lu Li seemed to be helping him. Actually, Lu Li had slapped him in the face again. "Okay, let's go." Chief Master waved his hand. He patted Jiang Ruiden's head and said, "Ruiden, now you know that there is always someone better than you out there. Go back and cultivate for a few more years. Try to get a good ranking in the next tournament of craftsmen." Lady Dan pouted and pulled a long face. Chief Master patted her head and felt even more wronged. She stared at Lu Li and said, "Lu Li, how about we make a bet? Let's bet on which of us will get a better ranking in the next tournament of craftsmen." Lady Dan was not young anymore, but she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. At the Chamber of Relics, everyone had to give in to her and spoil her. Therefore, she was spoiled rotten. She had been humiliated by Lu Li, but she was not convinced. She wanted to make another bet with Lu Li. Lu Li smiled. Cupping his fists, he said, "Lady Dan, you don't have to bet. You will win. I am just an amateur at reading. As a matter of fact, I am not good at forging artifacts. I'm not even a blacksmith yet. So how could I possibly participate in the blacksmith competition? If you want to bet, you should bet with Senior Brother Thousand Illusions." Qian Huanhan pulled a long face. He knew his own abilities. How could he defeat Lady Dan? Not even a blacksmith? The disciples looked at each other, speechless. Lu Li was not even an artifact refiner, but he dared to be so calm in front of the master and a group of patriarchs. Was he born with a screw loose, or did he have other tricks up his sleeves? Not bad. Elder Gu made the decision for Qian Huanhan. He said, "Qian Huanhan, you can compete with Ruiden. Next time, Whoever gets a better ranking will have to bow to the other party 3 times. This kind of healthy competition is a good thing. All right, Qian Huanhan nodded. It was just a bow. Moreover, he still had 7 years. Would he lose for sure? It's a deal. Lady Dan glared at Qian Huanhan and Lu Li and left. Chief and Dragon Shuasha followed her with a forced smile. The other patriarchs left as well. But before they left, they threw Lu Li a look of confusion. Why was Lu Li not even a blacksmith? The Chamber of Relics had its own evaluation standards. A single patriarch's decision was not enough. If Lu Li could not make a relic, no amount of convincing would be enough. If Lu Li wanted to become a blacksmith, he must submit a relic, and he must make it on his own. For example, Qian Huanhan could make a top-grade relic. The Chamber of Relics would recognize him as a craftsman and report to the craftsman's sect. Lu Li had been at the Chamber of Relics for so many years. Surely, he could not make a relic of the lowest level? Patriarch Gu brought Qian Huanhan and Lu Li back to the yard without saying anything. Cho Qianjun of the Palace of Evil Spirit already knew that Lu Li was Patriarch Gu's personal student. Therefore, it was not a big deal for Lu Li to be so ostentatious today. He could even make it public. Qian Huanhan brought out some good wine. Lu Li drank with him from morning to night. Qian Huanhan was overjoyed. He drank until he was drunk. Lu Li comforted him vaguely and encouraged him. Patriarch Gu had already regarded Qian Huanhan as his personal student. He gave Qian Huanhan many books and guided him in forging artifacts. Otherwise, Qian Huanhan would not have progressed so fast. Qian Huanhan was not talented in forging artifacts, but he was not weak either. He was better than most of the disciples in the sect. As long as he was willing to devote himself to the study, he might be able to reach a certain level. Qian Huanhan fell asleep. Lu Li sat for a while and walked to the backyard. Patriarch Gu was sitting under a grape tree, drawing a formation with a brush and paper. Lu Li took a look and saw that it was the formation for lightning trigger. Patriarch Gu must be thinking about how to improve the lightning trigger. Master, Lu Li bowed with respect. Patriarch Gu did not reply. After a while, Patriarch Gu looked up at Lu Li and said, "You have been studying for years. Why don't you start forging artifacts?" Over the years, Lu Li had been reading books. He had never forged artifacts in person. Patriarch Gu did ask him about it, but Lu Li said that he should study formations first. Patriarch Gu did not rush him. "I want to amaze the world with one brilliant feat." Lu Li grinned and laughed it off. He was not particularly interested in forging artifacts. So what if he could make a supreme relic? He would just be a master craftsman. Master craftsmen might not be everywhere in the divinity, but there were tens of thousands of them. Being a master craftsman did not mean much. Only when a master craftsman could become a master craftsman would there be a real transformation. Their status would be elevated, and the major forces would fight to rope them in. Those who joined the craftsman's sect could become patriarchs. That being said, it was not easy to become a master craftsman. Many patriarchs of the Chamber of Relics had studied forging artifacts for their entire lives, and yet they could not make a holy artifact. They could not make the final step. Therefore, Lu Li's mind was not on forging artifacts. He just wanted to read as many books as he could so that Blood Fairy could study on her own. He could cultivate to improve his abilities while he waited for Blood Fairy to finish studying the books. It would not be too late to start forging artifacts then. Fine. Suit yourself. Patriarch Gu did not say much. He went on with his drawing. Lu Li was a strange talent. He had a unique understanding of formations. Lu Li had his own plan. As his master, Patriarch Gu could not interfere too much. If Lu Li was left to his own devices, Patriarch Gu might turn Lu Li into a genius craftsman. Master, this disciple will take his leave. Lu Li was intrigued by Patriarch Gu's sketch. Recently, Blood Fairy had been studying the lightning summoning formation. She was trying to perfect it. Chapter 1352. Back at the library, Lu Li continued to read and cultivate divine energy and soul at the same time. There were hundreds of thousands of books in the library, but Lu Li did not need to read too many books on the first floor. The first floor contained some basic knowledge. The more than 100,000 books on the second floor were the best. Luli planned to read all the books so that he could focus on cultivation and leave the forging of artifacts to Blood Fairy. In a small room in the library, Luli activated the spirit-gathering bead. Cultivating divine energy here was hundreds of times faster than outside. Divine energy was pointless to cultivate. That being said, divine energy was the source of strength. Without profound divine energy, even if he were to learn powerful moves, he would not be able to use them all. Over a month had passed. Luli was awakened from cultivation by Blood Fairy's voice. "Master, I am out." Luli was cheered up. He asked at once, "How is it? Have you made any progress?" Blood Fairy replied, "Yes, I've tried to modify the formation of Lightning Trigger. Now, the power of Lightning Trigger should be much stronger. Also, I have found a way to prevent the user from being hurt when using Lightning Trigger." What? Luli was taken aback. Blood Fairy had absorbed the knowledge from Tion Lingzi's collection, Patriarch Gu's collection, and so many other books. Blood Fairy was quite good at formations. Luli was not surprised that Blood Fairy could modify the formation of Lightning Trigger. He was confident in Blood Fairy. However, Blood Fairy could find a way to prevent the user from being hurt. Last time, Patriarch Gu and Luli talked about the drawback of Lightning Trigger. That was, the user had to throw the Lightning Trigger at a distance of 1 mile, or else the user would be blasted into smithereens. If this problem could be solved, and there were enough Lightning Triggers, not even the super mighty warriors in the divinity would dare to come close. Luli asked in a hurry, "Are you sure? Lightning Trigger will attack indiscriminately. Not even the super mighty warriors in the divinity will be able to survive such powerful lightning." "That is easy," Blood Fairy explained. "As a matter of fact, among the formations left by Tion Lingzi, there is one that can resist lightning. Lightning is a special kind of energy. It is energy that can be absorbed as long as the formation is strong enough. No matter how strong the lightning is, it can be absorbed." The formation left by Tion Lingzi is called Thunder Gathering Formation, which can absorb lightning. I've modified this formation a little so that it can be perfectly engraved into the armor. As long as I can forge an armor with a lightning gathering formation, it will be able to resist the heavenly lightning. Furthermore, when the lightning strikes down, it can be absorbed by the armor to increase its defensive power. Luli had a deep understanding of inhibition formations. He gave some thought to Blood Fairy's idea and believed it was feasible. Of course, the premise was that the thunder gathering formation must be strong enough to absorb such lightning. Blood Fairy replied excitedly, "I've come up with 2 methods. The first is to attract the lightning and use it to strike at a specific spot. The second method was to add a lightning gathering array to the Heavenly Thunder Guide, allowing the Heavenly Thunder Guide to store up enough heavenly thunder. When the time came, it could be thrown out to kill the enemy. Master, can you imagine this? If a Heavenly Thunderbringer accumulates enough thunder and lightning and then explodes near Powerhouse, then all the stored thunder and lightning will be released. Even a super powerhouse of the immortal world would not feel good, right?" Hiss, Luli gasped. Though he had high hopes for Blood Fairy's talent and formations, he had underestimated her abilities. He imagined the scene of the explosion of the Heavenly Thunderbringer and the violent release of the accumulated thunder and lightning, killing all the enemies nearby. He couldn't help but shudder. Fixed point strike. But when he thought of Blood Fairy's first method of improvement, he was a bit confused. Thunderbringer only called for lightning. The moment the lightning struck, Thunderbringer would be useless. The Heavenly Thunder attacked indiscriminately, so how could it target the enemy? Blood Fairy explained, "Fixed point strike is a bit complicated, so I'll explain it to you. Wasn't the formation inside the Heavenly Thunderbringer supposed to attract the Heavenly Thunder to strike down? When the Heavenly Lightning struck down, it became an indiscriminate attack. However, what if the Heavenly Thunder Guide had added some materials that could attract lightning? When the Heavenly Thunderbringer exploded, the materials that attracted the lightning would also fly all over the sky. If some of them stuck to the enemy, Wouldn't the lightning take the initiative to attack the enemy? Of course, we need to make an armor that can resist the lightning. Otherwise, the person who used the heavenly Thunderbringer would be attacked by the lightning. Yes, Lu Li understood the general principle. He paused for a moment and said, "Give me all the knowledge you have in this area right now. I will ask Patriarch Gu to make the Thunderbolt-resistant armor as soon as possible." Okay. Blood Fairy reached into Lu Li's body with a tentacle. A large amount of information was transferred into Lu Li's mind. Lu Li sat on the ground and began to sort through the messy information. Then, he sent all the books he had read recently to Blood Fairy. With that done, Lu Li sat with his legs crossed and began to organize all the knowledge in his mind. He sat cross-legged for 7 to 8 days before he finished digesting all the information. He sat cross-legged for another day before completely digesting all the knowledge. The moment he opened his eyes, they were filled with excitement. After digesting all the information, he was confident that he could improve the Lightning Bringer and make the Thunderbolt-resistant armor. Of course, given his current level of forging artifacts, it was not enough for him to make the Lightning Bringer and such an advanced armor. Only Patriarch Gu could do it. Lu Li left his room and hurried to Patriarch Gu's place. In the back hall, Lu Li saw that Patriarch Gu was still sitting under the grape trellis and drawing on the drawing. Clearly, Patriarch Gu was still studying the way to modify the Lightning Bringer. "You are here. What is it?" Patriarch Gu threw Lu Li a glance and continued to draw with a frown. Lu Li grinned. He took out a pen and paper and began to draw. What he drew was an improved version of the Thunderbringer. His drawing technique was a little shaky, but it was still accurate. Seeing that Lu Li was drawing without saying anything, Patriarch Gu threw him a curious look. Soon he was surprised. "Lu Li, what are you drawing?" Patriarch Gu put down his writing brush, walked over to Lu Li, and looked at him. He asked with suspicion, "Why are you drawing the Thunder Trigger formation?" "Wait, something is not right." Patriarch Gu's eyelids twitched. He noticed that Lu Li's drawing was different from the Lightning Bringer. Patriarch Gu said nothing and observed quietly. "What?" After Lu Li finished the first drawing, Patriarch Gu studied it carefully for several times. His face twitched, and his eyes were filled with shock and confusion. He didn't say anything to disturb Lu Li. He looked at Lu Li's pen and began to study the second drawing. The more he studied, the more shocked he became. His expressions became more exaggerated, and he even trembled. Patriarch Gu had been forging artifacts for more than 100 years. He was the one who created the Lightning Bringer. Patriarch Gu could tell that there was something fishy in Lu Li's drawing. Lu Li didn't stop. He began the third drawing, the one inside the Thunderbolt-resistant armor. After the painting was completed, Elder Gu glanced at it a few times, and his whole body trembled. He picked up the 3 drawings and studied them over and over again. All of a sudden, he shouted, "Qian Huan Han, are you dead? If you are, get out now and get the chief here." Chapter 1353. Chief. Lu Li waved his hand after a moment of hesitation. "Master, I don't think we should disturb Chief. After all, these are just preliminary ideas. They have not been verified yet. I think we should discuss them together. Even if Chief is disturbed, I don't want to say that I am the one. You can say that you are the one." Lu Li was well aware of the importance of the formations. If the lightning trigger could be improved, it would be a breakthrough for the Chamber of Relics. The formations could be the cornerstone of the Chamber of Relics. Lu Li believed he could live longer if he kept a low profile. If news of him improving the lightning trigger were to spread, he would become the target of public criticism. Cho Qianjun might send someone to assassinate him. Patriarch Gu thought for a moment. He understood Lu Li's concern. Looking at Qian Huanhan, who was striding over, Patriarch Gu waved his hand and said, "It's okay. There is no need to invite the chief. Go back to cultivation." But Qian Huanhan blinked, confused. Why did Patriarch Gu call him in such a hurry? He came in a hurry, and Patriarch Gu told him to go back. Was Patriarch Gu messing with him? While Qian Huanhan was hesitating, Patriarch Gu glared at him. Qian Huanhan felt a chill on his back. He ran away quickly. If he didn't leave now, Elder Gu would probably send him flying with a slap. After Qian Huanhan left, Patriarch Gu took the drawings and studied them carefully. This time, he did not just skim over them. He studied them carefully to verify the feasibility. Luli had done some calculations, and it should not be a problem. That being said, he had never forged artifacts and had no experience. Everything was just an armchair strategy. It was up to Patriarch Gu to decide if it was feasible. Luli stood on the side quietly. Patriarch Gu had been studying the drawings for 6 hours without any intention of stopping. Luli waited. Patriarch Gu moved his eyes away when it was completely dark. His eyes glowed as he asked Luli, "Luli, did you create all these formations?" "Yes, master." Naturally, Luli could not tell Patriarch Gu that Blood Fairy was the one who developed them. Otherwise, people would covet them. Luli had to bite the bullet and say that he did it. "You are a genius." Elder Gu sighed and said with a face full of shame, "Master has been studying the Tao of artifact refining for 100 years, but it's not as good as what you have been studying for a few years. I'm not sure if your Heavenly Thunder Summoning Array is completely feasible, but there should be a 50% chance of success. This thunder-resistant battle armor's spirit array is very mysterious. If nothing goes wrong, I should be able to refine the thunder-resistant battle armor." All right, Luli was overjoyed. As long as he could make the thunder-resistant armor, it didn't matter if the Thunderbringer could be improved or not. Being able to withstand the bombardment of lightning, the Heavenly Thunderbringer was a great weapon for self-defense and killing enemies. Of course, if the Heavenly Thunderbringer could be improved, it would be even more perfect. Time is of the essence. Elder Gu was extremely excited. He waved his hand and said, "Go to the Internal Affairs Hall and get some divine materials. I'll start refining the thunder-resistant battle armor immediately." Patriarch Gu wrote out a list and took out his token. Luli walked to the Internal Affairs Hall with the token and the list. The materials on the list were expensive and rare. But since Luli had Patriarch Gu's token, the Patriarch of the Internal Affairs Hall did not say anything. After all, Patriarch Gu enjoyed a high status in the Chamber of Relics. Patriarch Gu was already at the Hall of Artifacts when Luli returned with all the materials. Patriarch Gu asked Luli to fetch many materials from the Hall of Materials. When everything was ready, Patriarch Gu turned on the largest stove and began to make prototypes. Making armors was troublesome. There was not just one piece of armor, but several pieces. Even though there were several pieces, they were connected. Therefore, it was troublesome to make them. Given Luli's abilities, he could not even make armors of the lowest level. Therefore, he had to help Patriarch Gu and learn from him at the same time. Patriarch Gu was skilled in forging artifacts, much better than Qian Huanhan. What was more, Patriarch Gu had a unique way of forging artifacts. His actions were fast and precise. Luli was dazzled. It took him more than half a day to make the prototypes. But the prototypes were beautiful. There were 6 pieces in total: a helmet, armor, arm guards, and greaves. The entire set of armor was blue with patterns like dragon scales. It was gorgeous. Good. Elder Gu nodded slightly and said, "Battle armors made from extraterrestrial star iron are indeed beautiful. This material is very rare and extremely tough. Even if you just inscribe some ordinary defensive arrays on it, this battle armor can become a mid-tier divine artifact." Patriarch Gu rested for a moment and began to carve the formations. Previously, when he was making relics, he would carve the formations while he was making the prototypes. This was the first time he was making a thunder-resistant armor. He could not afford to be careless. He did not carve the formations into the armor rashly. Instead, he took out another prototype and began. 2 hours later, he said with satisfaction, "It's done. Let's start." Patriarch Gu took over the armor and began to carve the formations. Luli stood on the side, afraid to make a sound. Stellar iron was expensive. The materials needed to make the armor would cost at least hundreds of thousands of divine sources. If something went wrong, the materials would be wasted. This time it took longer. 8 hours later, Patriarch Gu threw away the relic armor and said, "This formation is strange. I can't believe the carving failed." "Failed?" Luli was taken aback. Did that mean hundreds of thousands of divine sources were wasted? Patriarch Gu sighed. He stood up and said, I will take a rest and then reforge. The stellar iron is made of a special material. I think it could be used again. It can be used again? Luli was relieved. It would be a shame to waste hundreds of thousands of divine sources if it could not be used again. Patriarch Gu sat on the spot for an hour. He turned on the stove and threw the relic armor into the stove to be reforged. It can be used again. After it was melted back into the furnace, Elder Gu inspected it and nodded slightly. He began to carve the formation again. In the end, 6 hours later, he threw the armor on the ground and said dejectedly, I failed again. This astral metal is useless. What exactly went wrong? This is not right. Patriarch Gu murmured. He went back to the backyard and began to study the drawing. Luli threw the abandoned relic armor back to the Hall of Mystical Materials. He began to study with a frown. The formation should be fine. Luli had thought about it, and Patriarch Gu had been studying for a long time. It should be fine. Since the carving failed twice, then there must be something wrong with the stellar iron. Stellar iron? Luli searched for information about the stellar iron. A moment later, he raised his eyebrows. He hurried to the backyard and said, Master, when you were making the prototype of the stellar iron, did you add King of Darkness powder? No. What's wrong? Patriarch Gu shook his head and looked at Luli with confusion. Then he suddenly came to his senses. He patted his head and said, No wonder, no wonder. I am getting senile. Stellar iron is of extreme yang and hardness. We do need to add some King of Een powder during the forging process to increase the chances of success. Let's go on. Chapter 1354. In the backyard of the Chamber of Relics was a beautiful manor. It was spacious with mountains, rivers, trees, and flowers. This was where the chief of the Chamber of Relics lived. Chief Jiang Xinghe and his family lived here. At the moment, Jiang Xinghe was teaching Lady Dan in the Hall of Artifacts. Lady Dan could be so skilled because, for one, she was talented. For another, Jiang Xinghe was teaching her in person. Rustle, 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 there came some footsteps. A guard came in and reported, Chief, Patriarch Chi from the Division of Internal Affairs is here to see you. Go on. Jiang Xinghe waved to Lady Dan and walked out. He saw an old man standing there. Waving his hand, Jiang Xinghe said, Brother Chi, you are here. Have a seat. What is it? The Division of Internal Affairs was in charge of the internal affairs of the Chamber of Relics. Patriarch Chi was one of Jiang Xinghe's most trusted people. They were close, and they were old friends. Chief, Patriarch Chi did not sit down. Instead, he cupped his fists and said, Recently, Shauna has asked for a large number of materials worth over 1 million. I know that he will not waste them, but I think it is better that I report to Chief. Oh, Jiang Xinghe frowned. He looked at Patriarch Gu's manor in surprise and asked, Did Shauna say what relic he is making? What materials did he use? The main reason is the extraterrestrial star iron. Patriarch Chi explained. He has asked for cosmic stars iron many times. The first 2 times, he asked Luli to come and get it. Later, he sent me a message. I gave it to him since he is not a reckless person. He did not tell me what it is for. Yes, Jiang Xinghe nodded. Shanhe is a prudent man. Cosmic stars iron can be used in many ways, but it is mainly used to make armors, right? I don't think Shanhe will use cosmic stars iron to make regular supreme relic armors. Is he going to make a holy relic? Usually, Patriarch Gu would not use such precious materials to make regular supreme relic armors. Even if he did, he would not be so extravagant. He had asked for materials worth 1 million divine sources in just a few days. Jiang Xinghe knew Patriarch Gu very well. There were only 2 possibilities. Either Patriarch Gu was making a special supreme relic armor or a holy relic. I'll go take a look. Jiang Xinghe was a little curious. If Elder Gu could refine a saint-grade artifact, the artifact pavilion would have another divine blacksmith guru. This was a major event for the entire divine realm. The birth of a grandmaster divine blacksmith would cause a stir in the divine realm. Jiang Xinghe strode outside, while Elder Chi followed him with great interest. The two of them didn't alert anyone else and quickly walked out of the manor. They didn't even inform anyone before walking in. After they arrived outside the equipment refinement hall, the two of them were just about to push open the door and enter when they heard a wave of roaring laughter resound from within. All right, it's done. After consuming so many divine materials, it's finally done. Ha ha ha. Good, good, good. Jiang Xinghe and Elder Qi exchanged glances. Both of them were slightly moved. Ever since the death of Elder Gu's son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter, Elder Gu had not laughed like this for many years. Could it be that he had really refined a saint-grade artifact? Jiang Xinghe and Elder Qi hurriedly walked in and glanced at the battle armor in Elder Gu's hands. They saw an extremely gorgeous sky-blue battle armor. This battle armor was shining with light, and its aura was as deep as the sea. Jiang Xinghe and Patriarch Qi looked at each other, disappointed and confused. This was only a supreme relic armor. Why was Elder Gu so happy? It would be easy for Patriarch Gu to make a supreme relic. Chief, Luli saw Jiang Xinghe and Patriarch Qi. He bowed at once and said, Chief, Patriarch Qi. Chief, Patriarch Gu took a look and said with a smile, Chief, come and have a look at my latest relic armor. Okay. Jiang Xinghe was even more interested. He hurried over and took over the armor. He poured in divine energy to feel it. A moment later, Jiang Xinghe opened his eyes and said in surprise, the formations in the divinity are strange. Is it able to absorb thunderbolts? Theoretically speaking, that should be the case. Why don't we give it a try? Patriarch Gu said with a smile. Chief, get Shueisha here. I will throw a thunder trigger and see if he can stand it. If I am not mistaken, this thunderbolt-resistant armor should be able to stand the thunderbolts from the thunder trigger. Jiang Xinghe was surprised. Then he was overjoyed. The thunder trigger was the ultimate weapon of the Chamber of Relics. However, there was a drawback. The thunderbolts would attack indiscriminately. Therefore, the weapon had to be thrown out more than a mile away, or the user would be killed. If the weapon was thrown out more than a mile away, the super mighty warriors would have run away. If the relic armor could stand the thunderbolts, then the thunder trigger could be used at will. If dozens of the thunder triggers could cover an area with a radius of more than 3 miles, even the super mighty warriors in the divinity would die. Brother Qi, Jiang Xinghe shouted in excitement, get Shueisha here right now. Also, keep this a secret. Apart from us, no one else is allowed to know. When the thunder trigger was created, it caused a sensation in the divinity. Many forces were alarmed. They even wanted to destroy the weapon and assassinate Patriarch Gu. However, the craftsman sect made a statement and the drawback of the thunder trigger was known. Therefore, the forces were less afraid. After all, if it couldn't kill the super mighty warriors in the divinity, then it was meaningless. The appearance of the thunder-resistant armor increased the power of the thunder trigger. The possibility of killing the super mighty warriors in the divinity was greatly increased. Think about it. If Long Shueisha brought dozens of thunder triggers to a group of super mighty warriors in the divinity and detonated the thunder triggers at the same time, the super mighty warriors in the divinity might all be killed, but Long Shueisha could escape unscathed. Or if dozens of mighty warriors in the divinity wearing the thunder-resistant armor charged into a city with the thunder triggers, they would be able to kill all the gods and Buddhas in their way. Swish! In just a moment, Long Shueisha and Elder Qi hurried over. Jiang Xinghe handed the armor to Long Shueisha and said, Old Long, refine it immediately. We'll talk about the rest later. All right. Long Shueisha sat down cross-legged and started to refine the armor. He was very strong. It only took him a little less than an hour to refine the armor. He stood up, and his sky-blue armor appeared, instantly making him look valiant and awe-inspiring. Let's go outside the valley and do the test. Jiang Xinghe could not wait any longer. He waved his hand and walked out. Patriarch Gu waved at Lu Li and followed him. When they were outside, Jiang Xinghe threw Lu Li a look and said, I don't think he needs to go with us, right? The thunder-resistant armor was of great importance. It could be regarded as the top secret of the Chamber of Relics. Naturally, Jiang Xinghe did not want Lu Li to know too much. Therefore, he didn't want Lu Li to go and see the results of the test. Patriarch Gu waved his hand and said, "It's okay." Lu Li was involved in the entire design process. He is familiar with the formation. This is no secret to him. What? Chapter 1355. The Pavilion Lord led a few people out of the valley hurriedly, attracting a lot of attention. However, since the Pavilion Lord didn't say anything, no one dared to follow. They just gathered together and discussed, guessing what had happened and why the Pavilion Lord and the others were so excited. The group walked out of the valley and headed south. After tens of thousands of miles, they arrived at a mountain range. Jiang Xinghe said, "All right, let's do it here." Elder Gu took out a sky thunder guide, looked at Long Shuasha, and said, "Shuasha, I will throw it over later. You enter the lightning zone from the side. If you feel that you can't handle it, come out immediately." No one could guarantee that the thunder-resistant divine armor would be able to withstand the lightning. Naturally, no one dared to enter the depths of the lightning zone. Long Shuasha's battle strength was very strong, and his defense was also very strong. If the situation outside the lightning zone was not right, Long Shuasha would be able to retreat easily. Long Shuasha nodded slightly. Jiang Xinghe used his divine perception to scan the surroundings. After making sure that there was no one nearby, he said, "Let's begin." Elder Gu detonated the Sky Thunderbringer, and the Sky Thunderbringer gradually became brighter and brighter. Elder Gu suddenly threw it far away. Boom, boom, boom. Up in the 9 heavens, thunder rumbled, and lightning filled the sky. The mountain range in the distance had turned into a purgatory. Countless lightning snakes swam, circled, and flashed, wanting to tear all the living beings down below into pieces. Long Shuasha roared, and his body lit up with earthy yellow light. Following that, a earthy yellow halo appeared, forming layers of light barriers around his body. Long Shuasha flew over, but his speed wasn't fast. When he reached the periphery of the lightning storm, his speed was even slower. He slowly approached the lightning zone with a very serious expression. Even with his strength, if he was entangled by more than 10 lightning bolts, he would eventually die inside. TSK. A lightning bolt was drawn in, and it turned in an arc towards Long Shuasha. Long Shuasha's entire body tensed up. He roared angrily, and his body froze on the spot, allowing the lightning bolt that was as thick as an arm to entangle him. Bang! The earthy yellow light barriers around Long Shuasha's body exploded layer by layer. This was a defensive barrier formed by an earth elemental intent, but it was instantly destroyed by the lightning bolt. Jiang Xinghe and the rest became nervous. The lightning was so violent. If the divine lightning armor could not withstand it, Long Shuasha might be severely injured. If he did not retreat, the Dragon Blood Fiend would eventually be turned to ash by the time the rest of the lightning struck down. Buzz, at that moment, the sky blue battle armor around Long Shuasha lit up with a blinding light. The lightning that wrapped around him instantly vanished, clearly absorbed by the sky blue battle armor. Pavilion Master! Long Shuasha roared in agitation. He abruptly turned around to look at Jiang Xinghe and roared, "All the lightning has been absorbed!" Jiang Xinghe was overjoyed. Elder Gu and Elder Qi were so excited that they almost burst into tears. Qi, another bolt of lightning tore through the void and struck down. Long Shuasha charged toward the lightning bolts without any fear. The lightning bolts wrapped around him, but they quickly disappeared into his battle armor. All right, Long Shuasha sensed it, and his face was filled with joy. Even his beard was standing on end. He took the initiative to rush toward the lightning zone. His body was entangled by 2 lightning dragons, but the final outcome was the same. They were all absorbed by the lightning-resistant battle armor. Not bad, Lu Li nodded. The lightning-resistant battle armor had been preliminarily verified to be able to absorb lightning. It all depended on how much lightning it could absorb. Would there be any problems if it was continuously struck by lightning? Whoosh! Long Shueisha sped up. He dashed on like a mad lion, attracting more than a dozen lightning bolts. What made everyone overjoyed was that the dozen or so lightning dragons whizzed over, but they were all easily absorbed by the battle armor in the end. The dragon blood baneful dragon did not suffer any damage. Good. Patriarch Gu was overjoyed. This might be the happiest day he had in the past more than a decade. Tears welled up in his eyes. He looked at Lu Li with even more kindness. Congratulations, Master. Lu Li saw that Long Shueisha was running around in the lightning zone. He was sure that the lightning-resistant battle armor could withstand thunderbolts for a short time, at least one thunder trigger. Lu Li cupped his fist to Patriarch Gu and said, Congratulations, Master. Congratulations, Master. You have made another super relic armor that will go down in history. Yes. Good boy. Patriarch Gu nodded with tears in his eyes. Lu Li's words meant that he was going to take all the credit, even though Patriarch Gu did not deserve it. He could only say that he was the one who made the relic armor. Otherwise, it would be a disaster for Lu Li. A young talent that could make a weapon of mass destruction was a threat to many forces. Getting rid of Lu Li would only bring more benefits than harm. At the very least, the Palace of Evil Spirit would not allow Lu Li to grow. Long Shueisha flew around in the sky. When all the thunderbolts were gone, Long Shueisha shouted to Patriarch Gu, Shanha, throw another thunder trigger. This relic armor can absorb more thunderbolts, even 100 times more. Okay, Patriarch Gu had made many lightning triggers in the past. The entire Chamber of Relics had at least thousands in storage. He could squander them at will. Patriarch Gu's hand glowed as 2 lightning triggers appeared. He detonated them at the same time and threw them at Long Shueisha. He laughed and said, Shueisha, be careful. This is 2 lightning triggers. You will be in trouble if you cannot handle it. Ha. Long Shueisha laughed and said, Shanha, don't worry. I can feel that the more thunderbolts the relic armor absorbs, the stronger its defense is. Also, the thunderbolts stored in the armor are less than 1%. I think when all the thunderbolts are absorbed, the relic armor's defense will be better than many supreme relic armors. Boom, thunderbolts rained down. Long Shueisha moved around at will. All the thunderbolts that landed on the armor disappeared and were absorbed by the armor. Long Shueisha moved around for more than a dozen times and absorbed more than half of the thunderbolts. Lu Li and Patriarch Gu were relieved. They could be sure that the relic armor was a successful product. Okay, Patriarch Gu's mind was no longer on the relic armor. He was thinking about improving the thunder trigger. Of the 2 ways Lu Li suggested, one of them was to use the lightning gathering formation. The success of the thunderbolt-resistant armor indirectly proved that the thunder trigger could be improved. Chief, Patriarch Gu walked over to Jiang Xinghe and said in a low voice, I may need a large number of materials. I wanted to tell you first. Sure. Jiang Xinghe was in a good mood. He said casually, you want to build the thunderbolt-resistant armor, right? You can have as many materials as you want. Just ask Patriarch Qi. No. Patriarch Gu shook his head and said, I am not building a relic armor. I'm trying to improve the thunder trigger. I am 80% confident that the modification will be successful. By then, the lethality will be increased by 10 times. What? Even Jiang Xinghe, as shrewd as he was, could not stay calm. He yelled, Shanha, are you sure? Patriarch Gu nodded. Yes, good. Jiang Xinghe was overjoyed. He waved his hand and said, Shanha, do your best. Give me the people you want and the materials you want. Give me whatever you want. If you can increase the power of the thunder trigger by 10 times, you will be the greatest contributor to the Chamber of Relics in the past 10,000 years. Your name will go down in history. P.S. I have a lot to do these days, so I won't make up for it. I will next week. Chapter 1356. Jiang Xinghe had given Patriarch Qi the highest authority. Patriarch Qi was here as well. Since Chief Master had spoken, Patriarch Qi would not say anything. He would not object even if Patriarch Gu emptied out the warehouse. Of course, the Chamber of Relics was rich and imposing. Every year, they sold many relic weapons. After years of accumulation, the Chamber of Relics had more wealth than any of the 72 sections. Therefore, even if Patriarch Gu were to squander hundreds of millions of divine sources, it would not be a big deal for the Chamber of Relics. If the Artifact Pavilion could develop an even more powerful Heavenly Thunderbringer and a lightning-resistant battle armor, then the Artifact Pavilion wouldn't have to fear any super mighty in the Divine Realm. They wouldn't even have to be afraid of ordinary forces with Supremes in the Divine Realm. That was because the Artifact Pavilion's great killing weapon could kill the enemy at any time. With thousands of Heavenly Thunderbringers, any force would be annihilated. Dragon Shueisha came back. He disconnected the spiritual connection and gave the armor back to Patriarch Gu. This was the first relic armor. Patriarch Gu must study and improve it. After all, Patriarch Gu had made one. Dragon Shueisha could make a second or third one. By then, every Patriarch of the Chamber of Relics would have one. Patriarch Gu threw the relic armor to Lu Li and said, "Lu Li, this relic armor is yours. Right, give it a name." "Yeah." Jiang Xinghe, Dragon Shueisha, and Patriarch Qi looked at Lu Li in surprise. It was understandable that Patriarch Gu would give the relic armor to Lu Li. But why would Lu Li have the right to name the relic armor? This was unexpected. Every time a new relic appeared, the creator would have a right to name it. This was something that could be passed down through the ages. For example, there was once a master craftsman who made a special flying tool and named it after himself. With the popularization of this flying tool, his name was spread far and wide. This was more glorious than leaving his name in the history books. The Thunderbolt-resistant armor was miraculous. When the Thunderbolts were accumulated, its defensive ability would be better than any Supreme relic armor. In the future, the relic armor would be famous. How could Patriarch Gu let Lu Li have such an important naming right and a chance to show off? Lu Li was involved in the entire process of making the relic armor, and he gave me many inspirations. I'm an old man. I don't need fame. I will give it to the young ones. Elder Gu casually explained when he saw the surprised looks on Jiang Xinghe and the rest. Jiang Xinghe and the others were not entirely convinced. They thought Patriarch Gu was being too nice to Lu Li. "All right, thank you, Master." Lu Li understood that Patriarch Gu was trying to make it up to him indirectly. Since the Master and the others were here, Lu Li could not say much. He cupped his fists and thanked Patriarch Gu gratefully. He thought about it and said, "This god armor can resist lightning, absorb lightning, and store lightning. Why don't we call it the Thunder Armor?" Lu Li didn't go too far. He didn't use his name as an example. Jiang Xinghe and the others nodded, satisfied that Lu Li knew when to advance and when to retreat. If Lu Li was named Lu Jia, Lu Li A, Lu Wang A, or something like that, they would all feel ashamed. The group walked into the valley. At the entrance of the valley, Jiang Xinghe exhorted once again that this matter was not to be spread to anyone other than the 5 people present. Of course, this was mainly directed at Lu Li. Everyone else understood the gravity of the situation. Back at Patriarch Gu's manor, the chief didn't leave immediately. He asked Long Shueisha and Patriarch Qi to leave first. He went to the backyard with Patriarch Gu and listened to Patriarch Gu's explanation on how to improve the Thunder Trigger. Jiang Xinghe was more confident about improving the Thunder Trigger after hearing Patriarch Gu's explanation. He was a master craftsman. Even though he did not know the formation diagram of the Thunder Trigger, he was a master craftsman in forging artifacts. He could draw inferences from one example. He could understand many theories easily. "Okay, Shanhe, do your best." Jiang Xinghe didn't read or discuss the specific details or the formation diagram. Every artifact craftsman had their own unique skills. They all understood the rules. It would be disrespectful to Elder Gu if he didn't touch their unique techniques. Jiang Xinghe left. Soon, Patriarch Qi sent over a large number of materials. Jiang Xinghe gave the order in person for Patriarch Gu to spend freely and forge artifacts to his heart's content. Luli didn't want to participate in the production of the Thunder Trigger because he wanted to go back to reading. After the Thunder Trigger was improved, Patriarch Gu would give Luli something to protect himself. Luli knew how to modify the core of the Thunder Trigger, and it was not impossible for him to make more in the future. However, Patriarch Gu dragged Luli along. Luli knew that Patriarch Gu was doing it for his own good and wanted Luli to learn something. Luli had good theoretical knowledge, but little practice. Luli didn't dare to disobey Patriarch Gu's order. He began to make Thunder Trigger again and again. At the beginning, Patriarch Gu made many Thunder Triggers. He would explain every step in detail to Luli and order Luli to do himself. Patriarch Gu was embarrassed that Luli could not tell Patriarch Gu that he was the one who made the Thunder Trigger. Therefore, Patriarch Gu wanted to make it up to Luli. He planned to teach Luli how to make Thunder Trigger step by step. Thunder Trigger was Patriarch Gu's unique skill. Not even the chief was able to learn it. Patriarch Gu was treating Luli like his own son by teaching Luli so easily. How could Luli turn down the kindness of a lonely old man? He had to learn with all his heart, put in some effort, and try his best to satisfy Patriarch Gu. Luli had never forged artifact before. It was inevitable that he would be flustered when he had to make such a demanding relic. He often made mistakes. Patriarch Gu was patient. He never scolded or hit Luli. He didn't even say anything harsh. The more Patriarch Gu was like this, the more careful Luli was. He devoted himself to learning, practicing, and pondering. Luli's theoretical knowledge was strong. With the guidance of a famous teacher and repeated practice, Luli's skills in forging artifacts improved rapidly. Patriarch Gu was pleased with his fast progress. Patriarch Gu worked on Thunder Trigger for 1.5 months. Luli studied with him for 1.5 months. Later on, Qian Huanhan came to help as well. Of course, he was here to learn more. Luli had asked for Qian Huanhan's help. Otherwise, Patriarch Gu wouldn't want Qian Huanhan to be an eyesore. Over 300 Thunder Triggers were made in 1.5 months. They were all sent to the Hall of Internal Affairs. Patriarch Gu was not there to replenish the stock of the Chamber of Relics. Instead, he was working on improving the Thunder Trigger at the same time. It's about time. Patriarch Gu rested for half a day and decided to try to improve the Thunder Trigger. He chose the second plan proposed by Luli to build a formation inside the Thunder Trigger. The Thunder Trigger would attract thunderbolts and then use the formation to accumulate the thunderbolts. When needed, the Thunder Trigger would be detonated and the violent thunderbolts stored inside would be released to kill the enemies nearby. The Thunder Trigger had the word trigger. To attract thunderbolts, it would take time. Powerful warriors could move fast. The super mighty warriors could travel a long distance in the time for one breath. Therefore, when the thunderbolts came, the super mighty warriors in the divinity would have a good chance to run away. If thunderbolts were stored inside and released at once, not even the super mighty warriors in the divinity would be able to escape. As long as there were enough thunderbolts and the thunderbolts were strong enough, killing the super mighty warriors in the divinity was not just a dream. Chapter 1357. It was not a smooth process to improve the lightning trigger. In theory, it was fine, but in practice, problems came one after another. Patriarch Gu and Luli spent days and nights discussing, experimenting, and solving one problem after another. Luli's mind was filled with knowledge about forging artifacts. If he did not understand, he could ask Blood Fairy. This time, Luli had been a great help to Patriarch Gu. Every now and then, Luli's words would enlighten Patriarch Gu. If it were not for the fact that he was working with Patriarch Gu, Luli would not have experienced the difficulty of forging artifacts, nor would he understand why it was so difficult to become a master craftsman. The knowledge and skills required to design a high-level relic were vast. One mistake could change the performance of the entire relic. Any mistake could turn the relic into a useless one. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Jiang Xinghe would come here every half a month. Of course, he was not here to steal from Patriarch Gu, but to check on the progress. Patriarch Gu and Lu Li had spent 2 to 3 million divine sources worth of materials, but there was no sign of success. Jiang Xinghe did not feel the pinch at all. Even if he had to spend a few 100 million divine roots, he would not say anything, much less a few million. After all, every heaven-defying divine artifact had to be tested, refined, and improved before it could become perfect. Over the past few months, Lu Li's forging skills had improved by leaps and bounds. Given Lu Li's understanding of formations, Patriarch Gu was sure that Lu Li could now forge average top-grade relics. In other words, Lu Li was a master craftsman now. Lu Li was not in the mood to forge relics. His mind was occupied with the improved lightning trigger. He continued to discuss and experiment with Elder Gu. The two of them had already exchanged over 100 types of artifact embryos and divine materials. The new lightning trigger had to store thunderbolts. Therefore, the original materials could not be used. They had to replace them with new ones. That being said, regular materials could not trigger thunderbolts. Therefore, Patriarch Gu and Lu Li had to study, verify, and experiment with all kinds of conflicts and contradictions. Another 3 months passed. They had spent millions of divine sources in the Chamber of Relics and finally made the first improved lightning trigger. This lightning trigger was named Fury of the God of Thunder. Unfortunately, Patriarch Gu and Lu Li took the wrath of the God of Thunder out of the valley in high spirits. When the thunderbolts came down, the wrath of the God of Thunder that had just been made was blasted into dust by the thunderbolts. Patriarch Gu and Lu Li looked at each other, speechless, looking at the fury of the God of Thunder. They didn't even know what went wrong. The fury of the God of Thunder that they had spent so much effort to make was smashed. Inevitably, Lu Li felt discouraged. Patriarch Gu stood there for a long time, deep in thought. Suddenly, he slapped his head and said, "Oh no, I forgot one thing. The purple pattern steel cannot be mixed with sulfur lead powder. Otherwise, it will explode." No wonder the purple pattern steel exploded at the first thunderbolt. I'm getting senile. Patriarch Gu didn't even pay attention to Lu Li. He hurried to the yard by himself. Lu Li came back to his senses and hurried to catch up. The two of them rushed into the manor like the wind and started refining again. One day later, the second thunder god's fury appeared. The two of them excitedly rushed out of the valley, but the result was just as disappointing. The moment the heavenly lightning struck, the thunder god's fury instantly exploded. This time, even Patriarch Gu himself could not figure out. He went back to study. It took him 5 days before he made another thunder god's fury. He tried again after he was done, but the result was the same. The thunder god's fury exploded. The 4th one, the 5th one, the 10th one. Half a month, 1 month, 2 months, Lu Li didn't know that it would be so troublesome to make a high-level relic. He had thought that once the formation was developed, everything else would be fine. He didn't expect that Patriarch Gu, who was so skilled in forging artifacts, would have to spend so much time and so many materials. Craftsmen were indeed costly. How could a small sect afford to support craftsmen? We finally withstood it. When the 15th Thunder God's fury was made, the Thunder God's fury finally stopped. The formation inside began to absorb the thunderbolts. However, there was something wrong with this Thunder God's fury. After absorbing some thunderbolts, it exploded. This is good. Even though the Thunder God's fury did explode in the end, at least it had made a breakthrough. Now it could absorb some thunderbolts. When the Thunder God's fury was improved, it could absorb more thunderbolts. After several more rounds of improvement, the Thunder God's fury would be complete. Another month later, Patriarch Gu called Jiang Xinghe, Long Xuesha, and Patriarch Qi over. Jiang Xinghe and the others were thrilled. They had spent so many materials and so much time. Today, Patriarch Gu finally called them over. Clearly, the Thunder God's fury was a success. Here we go. Patriarch Gu handed a blue ball to Lu Li and asked him to activate it. Lu Li nodded and poured in divine energy to activate the formation inside. Whoosh, Lu Li threw the Thunder God's fury out. Thunder rumbled in the sky as lightning struck down. But this time, the thunderbolts were not indiscriminate. All the thunderbolts were surging toward the blue ball. All the thunderbolts vanished as soon as they came into contact with the blue ball. They were all absorbed. Boom, boom, boom. This thunder god's fury was not like the lightning bringer, which could only attract one thunderbolt. This one was constantly attracting thunderbolts. After the time for one incense stick to burn and at least thousands of thunderbolts were released, the sky finally calmed down. That's enough. Patriarch Gu took a look and nodded. Lu Li's hand glowed as he shot out divine energy at the thunder god's fury. Boom! All of a sudden, the wrath of the thunder god exploded. Following that, countless thunderbolts shot out wildly. An area with a radius of nearly 3 miles was covered by the violent thunderbolts. Streaks of destructive chi and energy came from there, making Lu Li and the others tremble in their souls. Hiss, hiss! Long Shuasha was the strongest among them, but he felt it the most. His facial muscles twitched as he gasped involuntarily. When the thunderbolts faded away, Long Shuasha exhaled and said, "The ultimate weapon is born. Shanha, from today on, you will be recorded in the history of the divinity." The thunder god's fury is horrifying. If it had exploded near me, I would have died for sure. Shanha, the entire Chamber of Relics is proud of you, Jiang Xinghe exclaimed. He had mixed feelings. To the Chamber of Relics, the thunder god's fury had its pros and cons. However, to the divinity, the disadvantages outweighed the advantages. The thunder god's fury would result in the death of many. If the method of making the thunder god's fury was made known, the entire divinity would be in chaos. Nobody could tell how many people would die, or if it would lead to a catastrophe in the divinity. That being said, Jiang Xinghe had to support the production of the thunder god's fury. With the thunder god's fury, the Chamber of Relics would have absolute deterrence. The Chamber of Relics would benefit in the future, and its status in the craftsman's sect would be elevated as well. The craftsman's sect had many branches in the divinity. The Chamber of Relics was nothing to the higher-ups of the craftsman's sect. With the thunder god's fury, the Chamber of Relics status in the craftsman's sect would be elevated. Whatever. Chapter 1358. After the fury of the god of thunder was developed, the entire Chamber of Relics became livelier. Most of the patriarchs were mobilized. They went to Patriarch Gu's yard, and many materials were transferred over. Elder Qi teleported away in the middle of the night to purchase a large number of divine materials. Jiang Xinghe planned to make 1,000 Fury of the God of Thunder and 30 Thunder Armors. Patriarch Gu could not handle such a heavy workload. Therefore, a group of patriarchs came to help. They made the prototype according to Patriarch Gu's requirements and sealed the artifact's spirit and stabilized the artifact. Patriarch Gu was only responsible for carving the inhibition formations. The core of the fury of the God of Thunder was the inhibition formations. As long as the inhibition formations were not leaked, it was impossible for the other patriarchs to figure out how to make the fury of the God of Thunder. In this way, Patriarch Gu would have an easier time and his efficiency would be improved. He used to make thunder triggers in this way as well. Patriarch Gu's yard was surrounded by disciples of the Hall of Warfare. Apart from the patriarchs, nobody was allowed to go in or out. Those patriarchs did not know exactly what they were making. Jiang Xinghe knew that if the information was leaked before the 1,000 Fury of the God of Thunder was made, the Chamber of Relics would be in a great disaster. The disciples of the Chamber of Relics were curious. Lady Dan and Long Yinhai kept asking around. But how could Lady Dan find out when even the patriarchs involved in the production did not know? Patriarch Qi came back with billions of divine sources and bought a large number of materials. Patriarch Gu worked day and night in his yard. The efficiency was fast. Patriarch Gu was getting better and faster at carving the inhibition formations. At first, when he was working with Lu Li, it would take him several hours to carve the inhibition formations. Now it only took him 2 hours. With more practice, he could finish in an hour at most. Lu Li and Qian Huanhan were busy. They were responsible for sorting out the materials and moving the prototype. As a matter of fact, Luli could carve the inhibition formations as well, because he was familiar with them. That being said, Patriarch Gu did not allow him to intervene. Otherwise, if the information was leaked, Luli would be in danger. Half a month. At first, the failure rate was high. However, as Jiang Xinghe got used to it, he could make several Fury of the God of Thunder every day. The finished products were taken away by Patriarch Qi without giving the other patriarchs a chance to study. After refining close to 100 Thunder God's Fury in half a month, Jiang Xinghe secretly sent Long Xuesha to charge all the Thunder God's Fury with lightning. This way, he could release them at any time to blast his enemies into smithereens. 1 month later, the news that more than 200 Thunder God's Fury had been refined had inevitably leaked out. There were spies in the artifact pavilion in the first place. Besides, Elder Qi had purchased so many divine materials. How could he hide it? On this day, the divine artifact pavilion's teleportation array lit up, and 3 figures flashed within it. Jiang Xinghe scanned it with his spiritual force and immediately flew out with Long Xuesha. Greetings, Elder He, Elder Ing, and Miss Huang. Jiang Xinghe bowed respectfully. Jiang Xinghe had already expected that the craftsman's sect would send someone over. He didn't expect the craftsman's sect to attach so much importance to it. They actually sent 2 big shots here. The Milky Way. Elder He smiled with a harmless expression on his face. He looked around the Valley of Artifacts, touched Luo Huang's head, and said, I heard that the scenery here is good. Are there a few beautiful attractions nearby? Little Huang, who has been bored recently, so this old man brought her over to play. Have fun. Jiang Xinghe and Long Xuesha were secretly amused. A little girl had come over to play, and she needed Elder He to personally accompany her. Furthermore, Elder Ing was a divine blacksmith grandmaster, so why would he come to the artifact pavilion? Welcome, welcome. On the surface, Jiang Xinghe was very polite as he led the 3 into the manor. They had just chatted for a while when the teleportation array lit up again. This time, 2 people came. One was a bald old man, and the other was an elegant young master. What? Lady Dan, who had just walked into the hall and was about to greet the 2, scanned with her psychic power. She blushed immediately and said with delight, Why is he here? Lu Tianxing, the crazy old man, and Lu Shiro. Jiang Xinghe used his psychic power to check and was surprised. The pavilion of Misty Drizzle had sent someone here, and it was an important one, the most powerful warrior of the Misty Drizzle Road, Lu Tianxing. The one with him was Lu Shiro, Lady Dan's crush. Xuesha, go and greet them. Jiang Xinghe felt a headache coming on. He asked Long Xuesha to go and greet them. Lady Dan bowed to Patriarch He and the others and said with a blushed face, I will go with Grandpa Xuesha. Buzzing, as soon as Long Xuesha and Lady Dan went out, the teleportation array lit up again. This time, 2 people came. Jiang Xinghe's psychic power detected a beautiful lady in an imperial dress. He was taken aback. He cupped his fist to Patriarch He and Patriarch Ing with a bitter smile and said, Patriarch He, Patriarch Ing, Master Shui is here. I will go and greet her. Go, go. Patriarch He did not mind at all. He said with a smile, Xinghe, don't worry. I am here. No matter who they are, the Valley of Relics cannot do anything. Of course, of course. Jiang Xinghe smiled in embarrassment. Patriarch He's meaning was clear. He was here on behalf of the craftsman's sect to support the Chamber of Relics. At the same time, he was making it clear, without the support of the craftsman's sect, it was unrealistic for the Chamber of Relics to enjoy the fury of thunder alone. The Chamber of Relics was a branch of the craftsman's sect, but it did not mean that the Chamber of Relics had to listen to the craftsman's sect. The Chamber of Relics could share some of the fury of thunder with the craftsman's sect, but the craftsman's sect must offer generous terms. Jiang Xinghe had made up his mind. He went to greet Master Shui, Lu Shiro, Holy Princess Shui, and the others. But they were not brought to the main hall. Instead, they were brought to another side hall. Xinghe, it has been decades since we last met. Lu Tianxing had a shiny bald head. He took Jiang Xinghe's hand and said, You have been obsessed with forging artifacts all these years. Why don't you come out for a walk? Last time we met, I didn't have enough to drink with you. This time, I am here in person. I don't think you don't have enough to drink. Master Shui was beautiful and elegant. She was a dignified lady. She looked around with a smile and said, Master Jiang, where is that disciple of yours called Lu Li? Ask him to come out and let me have a look. I want to see how handsome he is. How can he steal my darling Jingya's heart so easily? Master, Holy Princess blushed. She was so shy that she could not even look up. Lu Shi grinned and said, Ruiden, where is Lu Li? I am here, and he is not here to welcome me and Holy Princess. Isn't that a bit unfair? Lu Li, Jiang Xinghe, and Long Xuesha looked at each other. Both were alarmed. Lu Li was involved in the production of the Fury of Thunder and the Thunder Armor. Patriarch Gu thought highly of him. Clearly, the Palace of Snow Mountain and Pavilion of Misty Drizzle had ulterior motives. If the two forces could find a breakthrough through Lu Li, Jiang Xinghe would be in a difficult position. However, Chapter 1359. Lady Dan brought Jiang Xinghe's token into Patriarch Gu's manor and asked for Lu Li. Qian Huanhan winked. He thought Lady Dan had changed her mind and fallen in love with Lu Li. Lu Li asked for Patriarch Gu's permission before he left. Lady Dan said emotionlessly, Lu Li, Grandpa wants you to go out and spend time with Holy Princess, and that be asterisk tch Luum. I didn't know that someone likes AB asterisk tch like you. From what Palace Master Shui said, it seemed that Holy Maiden Shui quite liked you. A toad like you still had a chance to eat swan meat. Lu Li was not happy. He snorted and said, Jiang Ruiden, apologize to me now. I will tell Lu Shi about your embarrassing behavior. Apologize? You wish. Lady Dan glared at Lu Li with her eyes wide open. All right then, you asked for it. Lu Li smiled. He paid no more attention to Lady Dan and walked out. Gazing at Lu Li's back, Lady Dan's expressions changed. She was worried. She clenched her teeth and went after Lu Li, but she said nothing stubbornly. Lu Li paid no attention to Lady Dan and walked on in silence. When he was about to reach the backyard, Lady Dan finally couldn't stand it anymore. She shouted, Lu Li, what is that? She could not finish her sentence. Lu Li pretended that he did not hear her and continued to walk into the backyard. Lady Dan was losing patience. She caught up with Lu Li and stopped him. Lu Li looked at Lady Dan coldly and said, Master and the others can release their psychic powers at any time. Young Master Lu, this is your last chance. Lady Dan was so wrong that she almost cried. Her eyes turned red, and her pretty face was full of grievance. She looked so pitiful that no one could bear to see her like this. Unfortunately, Lu Li did not say anything. Lady Dan made up her mind and said, Okay, I apologize. I take back what I said. That's more like it. Lu Li smiled with satisfaction. He didn't feel guilty for bullying a little girl. He nodded and said, Don't worry. Go back to your room and wash up. Lu Shi will come for you later. Miss Dan was an innocent girl who had always been superior to others. She had never heard such dirty words before. She was so angry that she almost exploded. Lu Li paid no attention to her. He strode toward a side chamber. Ha ha! Before they went in, they could hear Lu Shi's laughter. Lu Shi walked out, hugged Lu Li tightly, and said, Brother Lu, I have missed you so much. F***CK. Lu Li felt a chill to be hugged by a man in public. He pushed Lu Shi away and said, Piss off, my dear husband. Stay away from me, or I will leave right now. Why are you like this? Lu Shi complained. You used to call me sweetheart, and now you call me husband. You are so cold and heartless. Lu Li was speechless. He glared at Lu Shi and said, Can you talk like a human? Ha ha ha. Lu Shi laughed out loud. He put his arm around Lu Li's shoulder and walked in. Lu Li cooperated with him, showing Lu Shi respect. He knew that Lu Shi was doing this on purpose. He wanted Jiang Xinghe to see their relationship. If it were someone else, he would not cooperate. But Lu Shi I had helped him a lot, and he should be grateful. Luli walked in and looked at Holy Princess. He cupped his fists and said, Holy Princess, it has been a while. You're getting more and more beautiful. Holy Princess blushed. She was so shy that she lowered her head and said, Young Master Lu, you are flattering me. Aren't you more and more handsome as well? The two echoed each other. They seemed to be flirting like lovers. Jiang Xinghe and Long Xuesha were speechless. Which side was Luli on? Luli turned to Lu Tianxing and bowed. Greetings, Grandpa Lu. Thank you for your help the other day. I am grateful. Good job. Lu Tianxing grinned from ear to ear at Lu Li's kindness. He nodded and said, Come to the pavilion of misty drizzle when you have time. Let's play with you. Lu Li bowed again. He looked away and cupped his fists at the lady. Nice to meet you, Master Shui. Good. Master Xuan nodded, like a mother-in-law looking at her son-in-law. She said with a smile, Lu Li, work hard. When you have made a name for yourself in forging artifacts, you can go to the palace of Snow Mountain to propose marriage. Propose marriage? Jiang Xinghe and Long Xuesha pulled a long face. It was clear that Master Shui was trying to recruit Lu Li. She had no respect for them. The palace of Snow Mountain had a holy princess, but Jiang Xinghe did not have a granddaughter. Holy Princess blushed even more. Lu Li could not tell if she was showing her true feelings or just pretending. Lu Li curled his lips. He decided to show Holy Princess some respect. After all, he was indebted to her. He cupped his fists and said, Thank you, Master Shui, for your kindness. I will work hard. All right. Jiang Xinghe could not stand it anymore. He waved his hand and said, Lu Li, Ruodin, go with young Master Lu and Holy Princess to visit the Valley of Relics. Lu Li, there are many wonderful places in the Valley of Relics that I don't think you have seen. You have a long way to go. What wonderful places could the Valley of Relics be? Jiang Xinghe was just hinting to Lu Li not to forget that he was from the Valley of Relics. Jiang Xinghe was also implying that the Valley of Relics would provide Lu Li with more benefits in the future, and that Lu Li should play his part. Yes, Chief. Lu Li bowed and left with Holy Princess and Lu Shi. Lady Dan took Holy Princess's hand and led her to the garden in the back. Lu Shi and Lu Li walked side by side. Out with you. Looking at the back of Lady Dan and Holy Princess, Lu Li asked, What are you trying to do by pretending to be mysterious? Ha ha. Lu Shi grinned. He bumped Lu Li with his shoulder and said, Don't you know what we are trying to do, given your intelligence? The Chamber of Relics has been making quite a fuss lately. What you have done is no longer a secret to many forces. Lu Li walked in silence. He knew that he could not keep such a serious matter a secret. Luckily, the Chamber of Relics had made hundreds of Wrath of Thunder pellets, which was enough to protect himself. What was more, the craftsman sect had sent someone over. Which force would have the courage to challenge them? If that was the case, he had to resort to the soft approach. Clearly, Lu Shi, and Holy Princess were here to play the emotional card. Lu Li was confident. He asked, You want to buy that thing? Yes. Lu Shi nodded. The more, the better. As for the price, the lower the price, the better. At least, it should not be sky high. Lu Li, is that thing really that powerful? It can kill a super mighty warrior in the divinity? There are some things that I cannot tell you. I am from the Chamber of Relics. Lu Li answered solemnly. Then, he added, I can only plead on your behalf and try to lower the price. Of course, I'm just a disciple. My words carry little weight. I cannot offer you much help. Come on. Lu Shi sneered at Lu Li. Do you really think we are fools? You are the real student of Patriarch Gu. You are the mastermind behind the competition of craftsmen. Don't think that we don't know. As long as you ask, Patriarch Gu will do it. Jiang Xinghe will have to respect Patriarch Gu. Isn't that right? Yes, it is. Lu Li threw Lu Shi a look and said coldly, You are good enough to have planned everything. Do you still need my help? You can deal with it yourself. No, brother, I am sorry. Seeing that Lu Li was walking away, Lu Shi was frightened. He hurried to catch up with Lu Li, bowing and smiling apologetically. He did not look like a young master from a famous family. Chapter 1360. In just one day, the sect masters of 3 major sects arrived, as well as the elders of 2 other forces with real power. Sensing that something was wrong, Jiang Xinghe ordered to close the teleportation formation and lock down the Valley of Relics. Jiang Xinghe knew very well that there were only 3 reasons why these great factions and sects had come to the Divine Artifact Pavilion. They either wanted to obtain the refinement method of the Thunder God's Fury, purchase the Thunder God's Fury, or destroy it. Of course, the fact that Patriarch Eagle and Patriarch Crane were here was a representation of Craftsman's sect's attitude. Even if someone harbored ill intentions, no one would dare to mess around in Chamber of Relics. Otherwise, Craftsman's sect would retaliate. Even with Patriarch Crane and the others here, Jiang Xinghe decided to be careful. He closed the teleportation formation and did not receive any guests. He did not want someone to fish in troubled waters when there were too many powerful warriors. After Jiang Xinghe received the Masters and Patriarchs, he never showed up again. He did not give Lu Tianxing and Master Snow any chance to negotiate. Dragon Xuesha was in charge of Patriarch Gu's yard. The yard was surrounded by warriors from the Hall of Battles. Not even a mosquito could sneak in. Patriarch Gu and the others continued to make Fury of Thunder. Jiang Xinghe's order was to make 1,000 for the Chamber of Relics. With 1,000 Fury of Thunder, Chamber of Relics would have a super weapon. Any force that wanted to go against Chamber of Relics would have to pay a heavy price. Neither Lu Tianxing nor Master Snow was in a hurry. Lu Li had promised Lu Shi and Holy Princess that the Palace of Snow Mountain and Pavilion of Misty Drizzle would have a share of the Fury of Thunder unless the Chamber of Relics did not sell a single one. Killing a super mighty warrior in the divinity. This was a powerful killing weapon. If he could buy a few hundred of them and bring them back to the sect to be used as the sect's treasure, the sect would have a supreme deterrent treasure. It would be very useful for killing enemies and protecting themselves. On the other hand, the sect masters and elders of the other sects were somewhat anxious because this matter would spread more and more. At that time, there would be more and more forces coming to buy Thunder God's Fury. If they could not make a decision now, it would be more difficult in the future. However, Jiang Xinghe did not see any guests. Dragon Xuesha was in charge of Patriarch Gu's yard. The only people they could see were some patriarchs who chatted with them. Patriarch Crane and the others were nearby. Who would dare to do anything? Elder Crane and Elder Eagle, on the other hand, were not in a hurry because the wrath of the Thunder God was too overbearing. The Artifact Pavilion would not be able to protect it. No matter what, the Craftsman sect would benefit the most. The elders of the Craftsman sect were all in high demand recently. Whether it was to purchase the Thunder God's Fury or to gather information, these elders were useful. Since the elders had spoken up to plead for leniency, Jiang Xinghe would definitely give them face. These elders had also participated in refining Thunder God's Fury, but they actually didn't know much. As for how powerful Thunder God's Fury was, the other elders didn't know and could only make a rough guess. Elder Gu had never come out. He had always been refining Thunder God's Fury. Jiang Xinghe had also disappeared. If he didn't refine 1,000 Thunder God's Furies, Jiang Xinghe wouldn't talk about anything else. They would first seek to protect themselves and gain absolute deterrence before bargaining with the other forces. Jiang Xinghe knew that it was unrealistic to monopolize Thunder God's Fury. Selling a batch of Thunder God's Fury would ease the pressure on the Artifact Pavilion. Otherwise, the Thunder God's Fury would only belong to the Artifact Pavilion. All the major factions would have their eyes on the Artifact Pavilion. If the Artifact Pavilion sold the Thunder God's Fury, the other forces would be relieved. Lu Li spent 2 days with Lu Shi and Holy Princess before he went back to the mansion to help. Holy Princess and Master Shui were putting on an act. Later on, Holy Princess behaved naturally when she was with Lu Li. Naturally, Lu Li didn't mind. He only saw Holy Princess as a friend. Long Xuesha was with Patriarch Gu in person. The other patriarchs worked day and night. The production of Thunder God's Fury increased. Over 20 Thunder God's Fury would be produced every day. In a month, they could make 500. A month later, Jiang Xinghe finally showed up. Instead of meeting the leaders of other forces, he went to see Patriarch Crane first. Luo Huang had been living in the Valley of Relics. Long Yanhai and Long Wentian would come over every now and then to pay their respects, hoping that a toad could have a taste of swan meat. Even if they could not, smelling the fragrance of swan meat was good enough. What upset Luo Huang was that Lu Li never showed up. It was as if Lu Li was not interested in a stunning beauty like her. During this time, Patriarch Crane and Patriarch Eagle hinted to some other patriarchs that Lu Li should come. But Lu Li never showed up. Beautiful women tend to be more concerned about their appearance and charm. They're used to the days of being surrounded by the stars. They might not care if a group of men surrounded them. However, when an outstanding man did not care about them, they would feel it was unfair. Luo Huang was even more upset when she learned that Lu Li had been with Holy Princess for 2 days today. Lu Li finally showed up, together with Jiang Xinghe. For the first time, Patriarch Gu showed up as well. Patriarch Crane and Patriarch Eagle were here. If Patriarch Gu did not show up, others would say that he did not know the rules. Patriarch Crane, Patriarch Eagle, and Lady Huang. Lu Li bowed with respect after Jiang Xinghe, Long Xuesha, and Patriarch Gu greeted him. Afterward, Lu Li stood to the side obediently. He did not look around. He was well behaved. Patriarch Crane looked at Lu Li with a smile and asked, Lu Li, I heard that you contributed a lot to the fury of the Thunder God. Lu Li cupped his fists and said, Patriarch Crane, you are flattering me. I'm not even a refiner. How can I contribute to the fury of the Thunder God, a high-level relic? All I did was help the elder out a little and do some small things. Ha. Patriarch Eagle smiled and said, I took a look at the fury of the Thunder God. There are some methods of disrupting and condensing formations. Did Shanha change his style? Patriarch Gu knew that Patriarch Eagle and the others would have doubts. He cupped his fists and said calmly, Patriarch Eagle, recently, I have been doing some research on disrupting and condensing formations. It is not elegant. Please don't laugh at me. All right, that's enough. Patriarch Crane didn't want to pursue this matter. He waved his hand and said, Huang, I must be bored. Lu Li, you could take her around for a walk. Lu Li knew that Patriarch Crane and the others were getting down to business. That being said, he didn't want to have too much contact with Luo Huang. This kind of young lady had a bad temper. He didn't want to wait on her like a grandchild. Since Patriarch Crane had named him, there was nothing Lu Li could do. He cupped his fists and said, It is my honor. Lady Huang, please. Luo Huang had been wearing a veil. She looked at Lu Li with her clear eyes and walked out in strides. Lu Li hurried to catch up with her. After Lu Li and Luo Huang left, Patriarch Crane cut to the chase and went straight to the point. Xinghe, you have been receiving requests from many forces, right? You must be under a lot of pressure. Jiang Xinghe knew that some things could not be hidden from Patriarch Crane. Today, he was here to negotiate. He stood up, cupped his fists, and said, Patriarch Crane, that is true. I plan to hold an auction in a couple of months and sell 100 Wrath of the Thunder God in one go. From now on, I will only sell 100 Wrath of the Thunder God every year. The highest bidder will get it. Of course, we will give 50 Wrath of the Thunder God to the craftsman's sect every year. Jiang Xinghe stated his terms. He would give 50 Wrath of the Thunder God to the craftsman's sect every year in exchange for the protection and support of the craftsman's sect. Patriarch Crane and Patriarch Ing looked at each other and smiled. Jiang Xinghe couldn't handle the pressure anymore. This saved them the trouble of talking. Patriarch Crane waved his hand and said, Xinghe, don't be so stingy. Give us 1,000 for the first time and 500 every year from now on. I will talk to the craftsman's sect. Chapter 1361. Elder, he represented the craftsman's sect and stated his conditions. However, he was asking for 1,000 Thunder God's Wrath for the first time and 500 every year. One had to know that only Elder Gu could create the Thunder God's Wrath. Elder Gu would definitely not leak the formation diagram. Thus, Eldagu would have to inscribe the formation personally. What's more, the divine materials needed for the Thunder God's Wrath were even more expensive. One Thunder God's Wrath would cost at least tens of thousands of divine roots. The craftsman's sect asked for 1,000. That was tens of millions of divine roots. This was also the cost price. Jiang Xinghe would probably not sell it for less than a few 100 million divine roots. The craftsman's sect wanted 500 every year in the future. That was equivalent to robbing divine roots. Jiang Xinghe knew that Elder he was asking for too much. There must be room for negotiation. He quickly frowned and said, Elder you also know that the Thunder God's Wrath formation needs to be inscribed by Shanha alone. What's more, it costs a lot. You ask for 1,500 every year. I'm afraid that all the disciples in the Divine Artifact Pavilion will starve to death in a few years. How about 200 for the first time and 100 for the next year? Don't make it sound so tragic. Elder he smiled and waved his hand. I don't think the amount should be too low. Shanha, please work harder. Of course, the sect will not let Shanha work for nothing. When I go back, I will request for a batch of divine materials to be sent down. We can also give you some of the divine materials that the craftsman's sect has. How can we let you work for nothing? Jiang Xinghe's face lit up. However, he muttered in his heart. He said he would give divine materials, but he didn't say how much. What kind of divine materials? If he sent some of them away, the Divine Artifact Pavilion would suffer a huge loss. He looked happy, but continued to bargain. He cupped his hands and said, Thank you, Elder He, for understanding us. All the disciples in the Divine Artifact Pavilion will be grateful to Elder He and the Craftsman's sect. If you can give us 5,000 kilograms of brown bloodstone, 1,000 heavenly yang crystals, and other divine materials, I think we could send 300 Thunder God's Wrath to the Craftsman's sect every year. Jiang Xinghe started to negotiate. Although the Divine Artifact Pavilion was a subsidiary of the Craftsman's sect, the Divine Artifact Pavilion could create the Thunder God's Wrath. It was rare for Jiang Xinghe to have the confidence to challenge the Craftsman's sect. How could he back down so easily? Sometimes, the more you express your attitude, the more the higher-ups value you. Ha ha ha. Elder he laughed heartily and continued to negotiate with Jiang Xinghe. He would definitely choose a price that both parties could accept in the end. While Jiang Xinghe and Patriarch he were arguing, Luli brought Luo Huang to the backyard. However, he had never been to this place before and wasn't very familiar with it. Hence, he brought Luo Huang around and didn't know where to go. Hence, he brought Luo Huang to a pavilion by the lake. I seem to be more familiar with this place than you are. Luo Huang followed Luli around and came to the pavilion by the lake where she usually sat. She said with dissatisfaction, Luli, I told you to take me out, and you brought me here. Sorry. Luli shrugged. There is nothing interesting in the Valley of Relics, and I am not familiar with the backyard. I am just a regular disciple, and I don't even have a right to come here. Also, you are grown up now. Why are you still so playful? Patriarch, he asked me to bring you out because he doesn't want us to disturb their discussion. We could just sit here and go back when they are done. Luli sat on the side, gazing into the lake. He didn't bring any tea to Luo Huang. He didn't even seem to like talking to her. He was not like other men. Every time he was with Luo Huang, they would either try to please her, boast about how awesome they were, or try to show off their strengths. Luo Huang threw him a look and asked with dissatisfaction, Luli, you seem to hate being with me. Have I offended you? No. Luli looked at Luo Huang calmly and said, Lady Huang, don't worry. You are pretty and excellent. No man will hate you. I am of humble status, and I am afraid to be with you. That is why I'm a bit reserved and don't dare to say too much. Reserved? Luo Huang rolled her eyes, adding a kind of coquettish and playful charm to her. She didn't see Luli being reserved at all, let alone scared. Luli didn't take her seriously at all. Clearly, he was just brushing her off. She snorted coldly and said nothing in a fit of pique. Luli glanced at her from the corner of his eyes and looked into the distance. He leaned against the pillar and said nothing more. He didn't want to have anything to do with Lady Luo's life. Since he had no interest in this beauty, he just wanted to sit here for a while. When the discussion inside was over, he could report back. Luo Huang was proud and arrogant. Since Lu Li didn't say anything, she wouldn't take the initiative to talk to him. She sat on the side in a fit of pique and looked at the lake in the distance. She didn't even look at Lu Li. Phew, phew. After a moment, Luo Huang suddenly heard a strange sound. She listened for a moment, and then her eyes widened. She looked to the left. Sure enough, she saw Lu Li sleeping soundly against the pillar. He was sound asleep and relaxed. Luo Huang was speechless. For the first time, she felt a sense of defeat. She began to doubt her own charm. How could Lu Li fall asleep with such an outstanding beauty sitting next to him? Lu Li was really tired. He hadn't slept for 2 hours for the past couple of months. He had been working with Patriarch Gu on the wrath of the Thunder God. Now that he finally had some free time, he fell asleep as he sat. No lust, no firmness. If a man had no lust for a woman, then no matter how beautiful and charming Luo Huang was, she would be no different from a beautiful flower to Lu Li. Compared to enjoying the beautiful scenery, it would be more comfortable to sleep for a while. Bastard Luo Huang glared at Lu Li. She was about to explode with anger. Patriarch, he asked Lu Li to take her here to have some fun. However, Lu Li fell asleep by himself, leaving a beauty like her hanging. This made Luo Huang feel awkward and aggrieved. After a while, Luo Huang became angrier. She stood up. Her hand glowed in a white light. Then, a stream of cold air came out from her hand. She reached into the lake next to her. A dragon of water whooshed up and flew over her hand. The water in the lake turned into ice water. The dragon of water covered Lu Li's head. Splash! Lu Li's head was drenched. The cold water woke him up at once. He had just woken up. He thought he was being attacked. Out of instinct, he slapped forward. At the same time, he took out the Demon Slayer weapon. His interspatial ring glowed as the wicked bead emerged. Bang! Luo Huang was standing right in front of Lu Li, and Lu Li was sitting down. The slap happened to land on Luo Huang's chest, on one of Luo Huang's proud peaks. That was not all. Lu Li's palm strike was so powerful that Luo Huang was not prepared at all. Therefore, Luo Huang was smashed away and smashed into the small lake not far away, becoming a phoenix that fell into the water. Oh no! Lu Li panicked when he saw Luo Huang's shy and murderous look. He mobilized his divine energy and flew away like a ghost. Of the 36 stratagems, running away was the best. Otherwise, Luo Huang would not let him go. Luo Huang was both angry and ashamed. She screamed, Lu Li, I will kill you. I will kill you. Chapter 1362. Lu Li went back to Patriarch Gu's yard and did not dare to come out. Luo Huang did not dare to make a scene at the Chamber of Relics. Also, she was too ashamed to speak her mind. Her image in public had always been as pure as ice and as clean as jade. If word got out that Lu Li had slapped her private area, then her reputation would definitely be ruined. She could only run back to her room in tears, scaring many of the maids. Who had the guts to provoke this noble young lady? Patriarch, he and the others used psychic power, but did not pay attention. It was normal for young people to fool around. Patriarch, he was broad-minded enough to do so. The negotiation was almost over. The Craftsman sect would be given 500 Wrath of Thunder God for the first time and 300 every year. The Craftsman sect would guarantee the Craftsman's sect's interests. At the same time, they would provide many materials every year. Some of the materials unique to the Craftsman sect would also be given a certain amount. The Craftsman sect and Patriarch, he had reached an agreement that in a few months, 100 Wrath of Thunder God would be put up for auction. Of course, Jiang Xinghe would sell some in secret, such as the Palace of Snow Mountain and the Pavilion of Misty Drizzle. They had waited here for a long time. Jiang Xinghe had to give them something, but the price would not be low. No matter how close they were, Jiang Xinghe would not give them face. The teleportation formation at the Chamber of Relics was activated again. The lockdown outside the Valley of Relics was lifted. Jiang Xinghe sent a message that in 3 months, the Chamber of Relics would hold an auction at the Sunset City. 100 Wrath of Thunder God would be put up for auction in 10 batches. Any force that wanted to bid could prepare in advance. Patriarch Gu and Lu Li worked day and night on the Wrath of Thunder God. The Wrath of Thunder God for the Craftsman's sect was not in a hurry. But the Wrath of Thunder God for auction must be made as soon as possible. Also, on the surface, there would be 100 at the auction. In the end, there would be more than 300. Jiang Xinghe and Lu Tianxing and Master Shui began to negotiate. Jiang Xinghe asked for a high price. Eventually, for the sake of Lu Li, Jiang Xinghe made some concessions and lowered the price. Lu Tianxing and the others did not leave after the negotiation. They would not leave until they had the finished product. They all wanted 100 Thunder God's Wrath. If they brought back 100 Thunder God's Wrath, it would be equivalent to bringing back 100 great killing weapons. In the sect, it would be a very strong deterrent. Eldering returned, and so did Luo Huang. Her heart was filled with rage. Even staying here for a day was unbearable. However, Elder he stayed behind. With him overseeing this place, Divine Artifact Valley was as stable as Mount Tai. No one dared to cause trouble here. Time passed quickly, and 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Patriarch Gu and the others worked overtime to make over 1,000 Wrath of Thunder. Lu Tianxing and Master Snow left with the treasures and satisfaction. Lu Shi, and Holy Princess left as well. After some people left, more people came. More than half of the 72 holy clans had come. Various hidden forces and some mysterious sects had also sent people. In the past 2 months, Jiang Xinghe had been busier than Elder Gu. He had been meeting this and that, talking to this and that. Many factions knew that it was unrealistic to go to the auction to buy the Spirit Stones. Firstly, the price would definitely be very high. Secondly, they might not be able to bid for it. If they could buy the Spirit Stones at the Chamber of Relics, then the matter would be settled once and for all. Too many forces had come. If all the orders were accepted, the number of Spirit Stones would be at least tens of thousands. Jiang Xinghe had to delay. He did not say no or agree. He just kept delaying. Many forces turned their attention to the auction when they could not get a definite answer. Jiang Xinghe had hinted that the auction would increase the number of Spirit Stones. As long as they had enough divine sources, they should be able to get some Wrath of Thunder. Lu Li and Qian Huanhan had been swamped with work. Lu Li was fed up. He did not want to waste his time on these boring things. He did not carve formations, nor did he take part in making prototypes or sealing Spirit Stones. All he did was help out with the chores. For example, he would send the prototypes to Patriarch Gu, or he would check the finished products to see if there were any problems. Given Lu Li's abilities, it would be difficult for him to make the Wrath of Thunder on his own, but he could carve formations. Patriarch Gu would not let him do it. It was not comfortable for Lu Li to do these chores. That being said, the auction was about to begin. This was a busy time. Lu Li could not tell Patriarch Gu. He had to wait until the auction was over before he went to the library to cultivate or read. Lu Li's identity was no longer a secret to some major forces. He was Patriarch Gu's private student. Therefore, Lu Li's identity was extraordinary because he might be the only one that could learn how to make the Wrath of Thunder. What happened at the competition of craftsmen was spread out. After all, Fantasy Frost was not good at forging artifacts. Many disciples of Chamber of Relics knew that. Some of the disciples of Chamber of Relics were spies from other forces. It was not difficult for them to get some information. Some forces had already reached out to Lu Li and offered him favorable terms. One of the 72 sects even offered Lu Li the position of a patriarch. As long as Lu Li quit Chamber of Relics, he would be promoted. Lu Li turned them all down. He was comfortable in Chamber of Relics. Apart from Lady Dan and Long Yin Hai, who would give him some trouble, the others were friendly to him. A month later, the auction began. Jiang Xinghe went in person, and so did Patriarch Gu. Patriarch did not go. He stayed at Chamber of Relics. The Sunset City was a major city controlled by a major force. The The city master was a super mighty warrior. There would be many powerful warriors at the auction. Who would dare to mess around? That would offend many forces. On the other hand, if Jiang Xinghe left with a group of patriarchs, the Chamber of Relics would be empty. Patriarch, he staying here, could ensure the safety of the rear. Luli did not go. This kind of auction was boring. It was just about buying and selling the Wrath of Thunder. Even if the Wrath of Thunder could be sold at a high price, it would have nothing to do with him. Qian Huanhan went with Lu Li. He had been bored in the Valley of Relics for a long time. On the surface, he was Patriarch Gu's private student. When he went out, he was respected. The major forces treated him with respect. How could he miss such a good chance to show off? Lu Li didn't care about the noise outside. He went to the library alone to enjoy the rare peace. He activated the inhibition formation in one of the rooms so that he could read and rest in peace. Half a day later, the inhibition formation in the library kept glaring. Lu Li woke up. He stared at the glaring inhibition formation. Suddenly, he had a bad feeling about this. He turned off the inhibition formation and opened the door. It was Qian Huanhan. Qian Huanhan pulled a long face. He was in pain and panic. He moved his lips and said in a choked voice, "Brother, my master is dead. Chief and Patriarch Bloodshaw are dead." What? It was like a bolt from the blue. Lu Li's body trembled, and he couldn't believe what he had heard. He blacked out. At this moment, he felt the sky was falling. It was undoubtedly the king of the underground assassins, and countless powerhouses in the immortal realm would turn pale upon hearing its name. 13 assassins. That meant that at least 3 of the immortal realm's super almighties had been mobilized. With so many powerhouses and all of them looking so unfamiliar, there was a 70% chance that the death god's hand had made a move. Elder he flew into a rage and no longer had a smile on his face. However, he did not rashly go to Sunset City. Instead, he continued to oversee Divine Artifact Pavilion. He craftsman's sect, he's sending. He of the craftsman. The sect. The craftsman's sect had no choice but to take action. This was a branch of the craftsman's sect. Jiang Xinghe was a craftsman's grandmaster, and Elder Gu had developed the Thunder God's fury. Now, the artifact pavilion hadn't even handed over the Thunder God's fury that they had promised the craftsman's sect, yet they were assassinated. Elder he had come to represent the craftsman's sect to come to an agreement with the Divine Artifact Pavilion. The craftsman's sect would help the Divine Artifact Pavilion withstand the pressure from all sides. Elder he had vowed that with him around, no one would dare to mess around. In the end, he was slapped in the face. Elder Crane was not the only one who was humiliated. The entire craftsman's sect was humiliated. If this matter was made known, the craftsman's sect's reputation would be greatly damaged. If the craftsman's sect didn't do anything, anyone could kill the craftsman's sect's branch forces for fun in the future. The clan master of craftsman's sect was enraged. He gave orders to investigate the culprit. The craftsman's sect sent out 2 supreme warriors and many powerful warriors. The entire divinity was shaken. The divinity was in turmoil. Those at the Chamber of Artifacts did not know. They only felt the sky was falling. Lu Li felt it especially strongly. The Chamber of Artifacts was the first place he felt a sense of belonging. Jiang Xinghe was nice to him. Patriarch Gu treated him like his own son, just like how Lu Renhuang did. Long Yanhai held grudges against him, but Long Shuisha was nice to him as well. Lady Dan and Long Yanhai would cause him trouble occasionally, but those were trivial matters. Lu Li felt comfortable at the Chamber of Artifacts. He had already regarded himself as a part of the chamber. Now, the Chamber of Artifacts was collapsing, and the reason could be him. Because of the wrath of the Thunder God. Back in the days, the Thunderbringer had shaken many forces in the divinity. Naturally, the fury of thunder, which could kill a mighty warrior in the divinity, would affect the interests of many forces. The fact that so many powerful warriors from major sects had come was proof enough. It was Blood Fairy who modified the Thunderbringer. However, it was Lu Li who gave it to Patriarch Gu. That was to say, indirectly, he was the one who killed Patriarch Gu and Dragon Shueisha in Jiangxinghe. He had killed a man who treated him like his own son. Luli felt his heart was being stabbed by a knife. He locked himself in a room in Patriarch Gu's manor and refused to see anyone. After a day of grief, he came to his senses. He told himself to forget about the pain and pull himself together. Otherwise, he would soon follow Patriarch Gu and lose the chance to avenge Jiang Xinghe and Dragon Shueisha. The enemy had assassinated Patriarch Gu and Jiang Xinghe. Clearly, the enemy was trying to destroy the Fury of Thunder and could not let it exist. As Patriarch Gu's protege, Lu Li was likely to have the method to forge the Fury of Thunder. Why would the enemy spare his life? Qin Huanhan was in danger as well. Of course, the enemy would not make any moves in the near future. Patriarch Crane was in the Valley of Relics. The enemy would not be so crazy. That being said, Patriarch Crane would leave sooner or later. With Dragon Shueisha gone, the Chamber of Relics would lose its super mighty warrior. By then, any powerful warrior could sneak in, and Lu Li and Qian Huanhan would die a tragic death. Without the protection of the Chamber of Relics, would Ling Wanjian and Chou Qianjun let Lu Li live? Therefore, Lu Li's only chance of survival was to go to Patriarch Ying for help or to be Patriarch Ying's disciple. However, Patriarch Gu's body was not cold yet. How could Lu Li become Patriarch Ying's disciple? This was against Lu Li's principles. What was more, joining the craftsman's sect meant that he could only forge artifacts for the rest of his life. Lu Li was not happy about it. As far as he was concerned, forging artifacts was only a sideline. Cultivating his abilities and becoming a powerful warrior was the way to go. Half a year. Lu Li thought about it for a while. He was sure that he could be safe for half a year at most. After all, nobody would dare to kill anyone in the Chamber of Relics before this incident was over. Therefore, he must find a way to protect himself in half a year. After that, he would have to face all kinds of assassination attempts. His abilities were not strong. He would not even know how he was going to die. Who organized this assassination attempt? Cabinet of Cloud? Palace of Evil Spirit? Two names popped up in Lu Li's mind, but he soon rejected them. It was said that the most powerful assassin organization in the divinity, the Hand of Death, was involved in this assassination attempt. 3 super mighty warriors from the divinity were involved. Cabinet of Cloud and Palace of Evil Spirit would not be able to invite the Hand of Death. Is it the other 3 forces? Chapter 1364. When the powerful warriors of Craftsman's sect came out, many places in the divinity were filled with bloodshed. It was said that in a couple of days, Craftsman's sect had killed over 100 suspects and hunted down dozens of powerful assassins. It was said that they had found the headquarters of the assassins, and 2 supreme warriors from the divinity were on their way to wipe out this assassin organization. The news was well organized. When Lu Li heard about it at the Chamber of Relics, he sensed something was wrong. He felt that Craftsman's sect was putting up a smokescreen. Either they were hiding in the dark, or they were not allowed to find the real culprit. Whether or not this assassination was organized by the Hand of Death, it was difficult for Craftsman's sect to kill dozens of assassins and over 100 suspects in such a short time. Also, when they said that they had found the headquarters of the assassins, they did not mention the name of the organization. An organization that could plan such a sophisticated assassination could not be a small organization. If it were the famous Hand of Death, then why would Craftsman's sect attack their headquarters so easily? Also, the culprit was not the Hand of Death. It was understandable that an assassin organization was paid to help. Craftsman's sect wanted to avenge Jiang Xinghe and the others. They must have found the culprit. Lu Li had a bad feeling about this. He guessed that the culprit behind this was a super godlike force, or a few super godlike forces working together to do this. Craftsman's sect might have compromised or started secret negotiations. Therefore, they were putting up a smokescreen. For one thing, they could save Craftsman's sect's reputation. For another, they could appease the Chamber of Relics and the other forces. Either way, the Chamber of Relics was going to be abandoned. Luli would be in more danger. Qian Huanhan. Luli knew he could not wait any longer. He found Qian Huanhan and activated the inhibition formation in the room. You cannot stay in the Chamber of Relics. Go back to your family. You will be killed mercilessly if you stay here. Qian Huanhan did not show much emotion, as if he had thought of this. He nodded. Actually, my family has sent someone to pick me up. They are on the way. I will be safe when I get back to my family. Boss, come back with me. You cannot stay in the Chamber of Relics. No. Luli did not want to live under someone else's roof. Qian Huanhan himself was not well liked in his own family. Otherwise, how could he have become an average disciple of the Chamber of Relics? If he went back, he would not have a good life. Secondly, he might be killed by Qian Huanhan's family. After all, he knew how to make Thunder God's fury. Luli said with determination, Han, don't worry about me. I have a safe place to go. That's right. These are some books left behind by the elders, and they include the refinement method of the Heaven Thunder Guide. You need to copy all of them immediately. Looking at the hundreds of ancient books on the ground, Qian Huanhan was a little shocked. Then he said bitterly, Boss, you're master's true disciple, right? Don't think too much. Luli patted Qian Huanhan's shoulder. To me, you are my brother, the closest person to me in the Chamber of Relics. Qian Huanhan's eyes turned red. He pursed his lips and did not say anything. He took out a pen and paper and began to write. Luli walked out of the room. He went to Patriarch Gu's room after some thoughts. He did not want to take any treasures from Patriarch Gu. He just wanted to take some of Patriarch Gu's robes and build a cenotaph for him. Patriarch Gu's body was torn apart by the twisting force in space. What? Entering the room, Luli noticed that it was in a mess. The decorations, books, relics, and the like were all gone. Clearly, someone had been in and looted everything. Luli was furious. It had only been a few days since Patriarch Gu passed away. Patriarchs of the Chamber of Relics had begun to covet his belongings. Of course, those patriarchs might not care about some treasures. They were more interested in the refinement method and the refinement method of the Heaven Thunder Guide. Luli suppressed his anger and began to tidy up the room. He took some of Patriarch Gu's robes and went to the backyard. He dug a new grave next to the two piles of graves and built a tombstone for Patriarch Gu. After several kowtows, Luli said with determination, Master, don't worry. I will fulfill your unfulfilled wish. Even if the craftsman's sect does not avenge you, I will find a way to do so. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Luli heard some footsteps. He used psychic power to check. His face was clouded. It was Jiang Zuqiang. One would not come to a temple without a cause. It must be Jiang Zuqiang who went into Patriarch Gu's room. Luli, Jiang Zuqiang strode in. Seeing Patriarch Gu's tombstone, Jiang Zuqiang seemed to be in pain. He bowed to the tombstone 3 times with respect before he sighed. Patriarch Gu and Uncle Blood Spirit have passed away. The Chamber of Relics is grieving. Luli, don't be too sad. The craftsman's sect will avenge them. We do not have time to grieve. We must be strong and pull ourselves together. Otherwise, the Chamber of Relics will be ruined. Chief and Patriarch Gu will not rest in peace. Luli clasped his hands emotionlessly and said, Patriarch Jiang, you are right. I will remember. What is it? Jiang Zuqiang stated his purpose. The Hall of Patriarchs has a meeting. Patriarch, he is in charge of the Chamber of Relics for now. I am in charge of the specific affairs. Patriarch, he asked me to come and take a look. He also asked me to tidy up the materials, artifacts, and books. I will let the Chamber of Relics take care of them for now. Luli, did Patriarch Gu give you some books before he passed away? Or did he give you the method of the Heaven Thunder Guide or the formation diagram of the Thunder Armor? The fox had shown its tail. Jiang Zuqiang was using Patriarch He's name to intimidate Luli. Of course, it was also possible that Patriarch He wanted the method of the Heaven Thunder Guide, the formation diagram of the Wrath of Thunder, and the Thunder Armor. Luli had all of them. But why would he give them to Jiang Zuqiang? Luli said emotionlessly, Patriarch Jiang, Patriarch Gu's belongings are in his room. You have searched, right? He did not give me any books. He did not give me the method of the Heaven Thunder Guide or the formation diagram of the Thunder Armor. I'm not even an artifact forging master. I don't need them. Really? Jiang Zuqiang was skeptical. He knew very well that Lu Li was Patriarch Gu's private student and Qian Huanhan was an imposter. If Lu Li did not have those items, then the Wrath of Thunder, the Thunder Armor, and the Thunder Trigger would be lost. No. Lu Li shook his head. He would not give Jiang Zuqiang, even if it were Patriarch Gu's belongings, let alone the formation diagram of the Wrath of Thunder and the Thunder Armor. Let me have a look at your interspatial ring. Jiang Zuqiang suddenly made an outrageous request. He even explained, this is a decision made by the Hall of Patriarchs. This concerns the safety and development of the Chamber of Relics. I hope you can understand that I am just going through the motions. How could Lu Li let Jiang Zuqiang have a look at his interspatial ring? The wicked bead was still in there. What if Jiang Zuqiang snatched the wicked bead? Therefore, without hesitation, Lu Li shook his head and said, Patriarch Jiang, the interspatial ring is my personal belongings. I refuse to let you have a look. It is not up to you to say no. Jiang Zuqiang pulled a long face. His hand glowed in a dark blue light. He was about to take Lu Li's interspatial ring by force. Chapter 1365. Lu Li was enraged. Did Jiang Zuqiang really think Lu Li was a pushover? Lu Li took out a Wrath of Thunder. As he poured in divine energy, the Wrath of Thunder began to glow. Lu Li yelled, Patriarch Jiang, if you want to push me, then let's fight to the death. Also, I am wearing the Thunderbolt armor. There was only one Thunderbolt armor, and it was on Lu Li. The Chamber of Relics planned to have Patriarch Gu make dozens. Unfortunately, Patriarch Gu passed away before he had the time. Jiang Zuqiang was standing next to Lu Li, but he did not move. If it were someone else, Jiang Zuqiang would have snorted and thought that the person was trying to scare him. But Lu Li was a lunatic. He had detonated the Thunderbolt ignition before. Jiang Zuqiang believed that Lu Li would use the Thunderbolt ignition if he was pushed too hard. What was more, Lu Li had the Thunderbolt armor. Thunderbolts could not kill him. Jiang Zuqiang took back his hand in embarrassment. He forced a smile and said, Lu Li, don't be so impulsive. We can talk. Why do you have the Wrath of Thunder? Put it away. Lu Li did not put away the Wrath of Thunder. He looked at Jiang Zuqiang coldly and said, Patriarch Jiang, I have told you that Patriarch Gu did not leave anything for me. He did not know that I would be in danger at the auction. Why would he leave something for me? Jiang Zuqiang forced a smile and explained, Lu Li, I'm doing this for your safety. You know, many people have their eyes on this auction. If he did leave something, you can give it to us. Then, nobody will come after you. I'm not afraid of trouble, and I don't have anything, Lu Li said stubbornly. Okay, fine. Jiang Zuqiang forced a smile again and left. Then, he turned around and asked, Then, should I leave it for Qian Huanhan? Lu Li sneered. You know that Qian Huanhan is an imposter. Will Patriarch Gu leave it for him? That is true. Jiang Zuqiang left in disappointment. Lu Li went to Qian Huanhan's room at once. Seeing that Qian Huanhan was still copying books, Lu Li said in a hurry, Don't copy those books. Copy the method of Thunderbolt ignition and then find someone from your family to take you away. You will be in trouble if you are too late. Lu Li had thought that everything would be fine in half a year. He did not take into account people from the Chamber of Relics. Judging from the current situation, someone in the Chamber of Relics was plotting against the wrath of the Thunder God. The longer he and Qian Huanhan stayed, the more danger they would be in. If Elder He gave the order, the two of them would be controlled immediately unless he really detonated the wrath of the Thunder God. Lu Li had Wrath of Thunder, and he had quite a few of them. There were 30 of them. It was not given to Lu Li by Patriarch Gu. Lu Li hid it secretly. When he went to check if the Thunder God's fury was up to standard, he treated some of the intact Thunder God's fury as scrap. The power of the Thunder God's fury was astonishing. Ling Wanjian and Chou Qianjun wanted to kill him at all times. How could he not save some to protect himself? If he had more time, he would have been able to hide hundreds of Thunder God's fury pills. Unfortunately, Elder Gu was suddenly assassinated. I need to think of a way to leave. Without Jiang Xinghe and Elder Gu around, the Divine Artifact Pavilion was no longer safe. Today, there was one Jiang Zuqiang. Tomorrow, there would be a second and a third, and Jiang Zuqiang would definitely not give up. Leave? Louis did not know where to go. He knew very well that as soon as he left the Divine Artifact Pavilion, he would be hunted down. Even super mighty warriors in the divinity might come after him. How long could he last with 30 Thunder Gods' fury pills? Leaving Qian Huanhan's room, Luli sat in the hall by himself, thinking about his future. All of a sudden, a disciple came in. He sneaked up to Lu Li and whispered, "Brother Lu, I am here to deliver a message." Luli put his guard up. That disciple did not do anything out of the ordinary. He just handed Luli a note and left. Luli read the note. It said, "If you want to go to the pavilion of misty drizzle, teleport to the Sunset City in 3 days. My grandpa will pick you up in person." Lu sure, or had sent a message. Luli felt a bit of warmth in his heart. But soon, he rejected the idea of going to the pavilion of misty drizzle. How could a small pavilion of misty drizzle protect Lu Li when he was bold enough to assassinate Jiang Xinghe and Patriarchu at the Sunset City? Previously, Lu Li had thought that the 72 sects were the top forces in the divinity. Now, it seemed that the divinity was more complicated than he had imagined. The divinity was a complicated place. Many forces were hiding in the dark. Those that were not at a certain level were not qualified to know. Luli could not go to the pavilion of misty drizzle or Qian Huanhan's family. It seemed that the craftsman's sect was the only option for now. That being said, the craftsman's sect might abandon the Chamber of Relics this time, which made Luli uncomfortable. He felt betrayed. Russell. Not long after, another disciple walked in. He didn't say anything, just put down a space ring and left. Luli took over the interspatial ring with a frown and checked with psychic power. What? The interspatial ring glowed. An ancient book came out along with a note. Luli did not read the book. He opened the note and read it. There was also a line of words on it. Cultivate this skill and then go far away to the land of Yuyin in the north. The Chamber of Relics cannot stay for long. Old friends of the Starlight City. Old friends of the Starry City. A glow rose in Luli's eyes when he read the last few words. He remembered that when he was ambushed at the Starry City, a mysterious man suddenly came to his rescue. Back then, Ling Hong was about to release the 1,000 poisons to bite him. It was a mysterious warrior who killed the 1,000 poisons. This mysterious man showed up again. He sent someone to deliver a book and a hint for Luli to run away. Who is this mysterious man? Why is he helping me? Luli could not figure it out. This mysterious man could send someone to deliver something and knew about Luli's situation. What he did at the Starry City was proof that this mysterious man was powerful. Now, he had proven that this mysterious man was resourceful. Back in the divinity, Luli did not know a warrior of this level. There was no love for no reason in the world. A stranger would not be so kind to him and help him so many times. Luli was confused. Is he really my sister's friend? If so, why didn't my sister come and meet me? Luli could not figure it out. He thought for a while and picked up the book. When he opened it, he saw the words flying through the void. Luli's heart skipped a beat when he saw the words. He felt the skill was impressive. It must be a high-level skill. Luli hurriedly flipped through it. He spent an hour to memorize every word. He was even more shocked now. According to the book, this was an ancient skill. When successfully cultivated, one could cross hundreds of millions of miles in one go. It was a skill of the highest quality for escaping. Good. Luli was thrilled. With this skill, he could run away at any time, even if he was hunted down by powerful enemies. Also, he had the Wrath of Thunder. He should have a chance to run to the land of Yuyin. Luli did not know what the land of Yuyin was, but somehow he trusted this mysterious warrior. Maybe, when he reached the land of Yuyin, this warrior would show up on his own. Or his sister would come and meet him. P.S. I want to take a nap for 3 hours. I still have a chapter to write. Chapter 1366. The mysterious warrior showed up again. Still, he did not show up. He gave Luli a book from ancient times and showed him a way out. This person seemed to be observing Luli from the dark. He knew that Luli was at his most helpless and lost at the moment. Luli did not know where to go. As soon as he left the Chamber of Relics, he would die. Apart from going to the Craftsman's sect, he had no other way out. Clearly, the Craftsman's sect had compromised. They were not going to avenge Jiang Xinghe and Patriarch Dragon Bloodfiend. This made Luli dislike the Craftsman's sect. He was not interested in forging artifacts for the rest of his life. Now that he had the void traversal skill, he gave up on the idea of going to the Craftsman's sect. He locked himself in his room and began to concentrate on practicing this divine art. However, this divine art looked very complicated, and it was almost impossible to master it in a few days. Luli tried to be patient and focused on the skill. One day later, Qian Huanhan woke him up and gave the book back to Luli. Qian Huanhan had already memorized the refining method of the sky thunder attraction. He had also destroyed the rest of the ancient books. He understood the gravity of the situation. Even though those books were important, he could not leave them behind. Otherwise, he would be in grave danger. As a matter of fact, the way to make the lightning trigger was more important than the other books Luli gave him. Memorizing it was better than copying all the books. After all, Qian Huanhan was Patriarch Gu's protege. Even though he was an imposter, Patriarch Gu acknowledged him later on. Luli regarded Qian Huanhan as a brother. Therefore, after careful consideration, Qian Huanhan passed on the way to make the lightning trigger. Luli did not know if the way to make the lightning trigger would bring Qian Huanhan some benefits or bring him fatal danger. Luli could not worry about that now, not even himself. He did not have the ability to care about Qian Huanhan. "Boss," Qian Huanhan said after a pause, "I think you should destroy those books. Keeping them will only bring you endless trouble. Also, my family has found the space-time office. They should arrive tomorrow. Boss, how about you go back to my family with me? Unless I die, I will not let anyone hurt you." Qian Huanhan was sincere, and Luli could feel his kindness. But Luli shook his head. "Don't worry about me. Take care of yourself. I have a safe place to go. You can go back to the family in peace. The mountains are high and the rivers are long. We two brothers will meet again sooner or later." "Boss," Qian Huanhan choked with sobs. Luli waved his hand and said, "Go back now. Call me before you go. I have something else to do." "Yes, yes." Qian Huanhan nodded and walked out in silence. Luli continued to cultivate. A day later, he was woken up by Qian Huanhan again. This time, Qian Huanhan was here to bid farewell. He looked at Luli and said, "My family is outside the valley." "Big brother, I have to go." Luli nodded and asked, "Is it okay for you to leave the valley rashly? Won't someone notice it?" "I'm fine." Qian Huanhan shook his head and said, "The clan knows that I am Elder Gu's disciple. They also know about the Thunder God's fury. Hence, I still have some value now. The clan has sent 2 powerhouses over this time. Even if Elder he wants to stay, he won't be able to." Luli knew that Qian Huanhan's family was strong, but he did not know that it was this strong. Not even Patriarch he could stop Qian Huanhan's family. Then, Qian Huanhan's family must have sent supreme warriors from the divinity. That being said, given that Meng Feier's family had supreme warriors in the divinity, it was not surprising that Qian Huanhan and Meng Feier were engaged. Luli asked with curiosity, "Xiao Han, how many hidden forces are there in the divinity? What level are the 72 sects in the divinity?" Qian Huanhan hesitated for a moment. Eventually, he explained, "If we divide the forces in the divinity into 5 levels, the 72 sects are the 3rd level, and my family is the 4th. There are more powerful families and forces. Also, I don't know everything yet. Maybe there are 6th level forces in the divinity." What? Luli was scared. He did not know that the divinity was so complicated. After a moment, Luli hugged Qian Huanhan and said, Go back to the family and live a good life. Don't be stubborn. Endure for 10 years, and you will soar up one day. Qian Huanhan nodded. Big brother, you must survive. You're the first real friend I have. I don't want anything to happen to you. I will. Determination rose in Lu Li's eyes. He nodded. I came from the lower universe, and I went through so much to ascend. I will not die so easily. I will stand at the peak of the divinity. I will not let anyone dictate my life. Okay. Qian Huanhan gave Lu Li a meaningful look and then left. Lu Li followed him to the door, but did not see him out. Instead, he watched Qian Huanhan leave. When Qian Huanhan left the yard, Lu Li was still standing at the door. Lu Li waited quietly for Qian Huanhan to leave. Lu Li used psychic power to check on Qian Huanhan, who swaggered toward the opening of the valley. Qian Huanhan's unusual behavior caught many people's attention. Lu Li could clearly feel some psychic power secretly checking on Qian Huanhan. Lu Li was nervous. Many patriarchs of the Chamber of Relics might have been bribed. Qian Huanhan could be captured or killed right away. Qian Huanhan swaggered to the opening of the Valley of Relics where disciples of the Hall of Warfare were guarding. The Valley of Relics was locked down. It would not be easy for Qian Huanhan to walk out. Whoosh! Qian Huanhan did not say anything to the disciples of the Hall of Warfare. He flew over the city wall outside the Valley of Relics. The disciples of the Hall of Warfare flew up to stop Qian Huanhan. Someone shouted. Some patriarchs had come out from their yards. Lu Li came out as soon as he saw Jiang Zuqiang. Buzzing, the space at the opening of the Valley of Relics suddenly trembled. Then, a surge of energy spread out. The disciples of the Hall of Warfare that flew up were suppressed. The patriarchs that flew up were frightened. They did not dare to fly toward the Valley of Relics. Patriarch He, who was in the backyard, did nothing. Qian Huanhan swaggered out and vanished into the mountains in the distance. Swish, swish, swish. Many of the elders' faces turned extremely pale, especially Jiang Zuqiang, whose expression was even more unsightly. After giving it a thought, he quickly went to the backyard and found Elder He, who was standing at the lakeside pavilion, and anxiously asked, "Why didn't you stop him, Elder He? Qian Huanhan might know the way to make Wrath of Thunder." "I wanted to, but I cannot." Patriarch He shook his head. A supreme warrior from the divinity came to pick up Qian Huanhan? Did Gu Shanhe really teach him the Wrath of Thunder? That doesn't make sense. It should be Lu Li, supreme warrior from the divinity. Jiang Zuqiang was taken aback. Just now, he felt a surge of power. He thought it was just a super mighty warrior from the divinity. He did not expect that it was a supreme warrior from the divinity. We cannot wait any longer. Jiang Zuqiang made up his mind. Patriarch He, we must take Lu Li down and search his soul. What if another supreme warrior from the divinity comes and takes Lu Li away? You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.